today will produce a gremlin-free afternoon. And I hope I didn't just jinx it, touch wood. So I think Viam and I are going to try and see if we can find Tingana again from this morning. I know he disappeared into a thicket, but we're going to try and head that way and see what we can find. It's a beautiful afternoon, Viam, don't you think? It's nice weather we're having this afternoon. The cold wind seems to have gone away, and we've got nice sunshine. It's very, very pleasant out here. Actually quite hot in the sun, which is good for us because it hopefully means that Tingana, who likes to walk, is going to have found somewhere to actually sleep this time, and that we can potentially then find him resting. And it would be nice if he decided to rest in the boughs of a beautiful big jackalberry, or maybe a scotia, one of those kind of trees along the riverbed somewhere. That would be very pleasant. I, however, think that is not going to be the case. We more than likely are going to have to search for him in the thickets and long grass, which isn't ideal. A little bit of evasive maneuvering in the afternoon, get the old eyes sharp and arms sharp. Vem, what do you reckon? In a tree or on the ground?
Ground.
On the ground, eh? In the thickets. I think you may be right, Vem. It's hot enough to be that way, but I'm hoping that maybe, just maybe, there's enough insect activity to drive him up into a tree somewhere. Maybe there's enough ants or flies that he gets up into a tree and we find him, like I say, lazing perfectly in the afternoon light. If not, I think we shall be checking a few of the dams. It's going to be warm this afternoon, so hopefully there'll be some Ellies around and they will be swimming and taking pleasure in being in some water. So that's our other plan. I don't see any signs here, Viam. Do you not think he's gone further north towards Buffelshoek boundary? Could have. What was his direction this morning, north or east? Okay. I think we shall check Buffelshoek boundary as well. Maybe Buffelshoek Dam? Okay. Alright, if we went towards Torchwood, then the road that we're on is not a bad one just to check as well, in case you decided to come south. This morning on Bushwalk we found his tracks everywhere. He walked a long way last night. Seems like he came from Arethusa, Hofmans, that area, and then came up past Shabamu Pans, then past Treehouse Dam, then up Scavenger's Track, Philemon's Cutline, Philemon's Dip, northwards onto Quarantine, and then towards Vuyatela Dam or Gari Dam, and then from there is where you guys found him. So a long, long way that he walked. But I feel like our luck will change this afternoon, Viam. We put in enough effort in the last 2 days that hopefully he will reward us for all the tracks we have followed. Alright, so we're going to go and start the main show, so we'll see you all a little bit later.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody. There, a beautiful African scene of an impala ram underneath a tree beneath the great vault of heaven. This is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
5, 4, 3,
It's about 86 degrees Fahrenheit out here, 30 degrees Celsius. It's a gorgeous sort of very late summer, early autumn afternoon here. My name is James Hendry. David is on camera. Tristan is out with Viam, and Taylor will shortly be out on foot with Egbert Pumpernickel. We're hopefully going to find you some very interesting things during the course of the day. Please do talk to us. Hashtag Safari Live is the best and indeed, well, not quite the only, but mostly the only way to get hold of us on Twitter. Hashtag Safari Live. Questions or comments or anything else you'd like to see. What we're going to do is head along the western boundary, along the fringes of the mountains. Well, we're not going to go quite that far west. We'll go another 100 meters or so west. And then we're going to go all the way to the east of Cheetah Plains. And hopefully we'll find something interesting on the way. Very little in the way of tracks to follow, so it's a sort of fresh blank canvas for us to operate with this afternoon. You are most welcome. And now I'm going to begin driving this vehicle. The Impala has taken off. He found my introduction deeply distasteful, and so he's left. But we've sat with him for about 5 minutes. He's standing underneath that false marula tree, and it was just very pleasant sitting there with him. 30 degrees, as I say, so it's quite a pleasant temperature. Let's head across to Tristan, who is wishing desperately to tell you how his search for Tingana is going.
Good afternoon and welcome to our sunset safari, and a special warm welcome to Pelham and Tallwood that have joined us this afternoon. I hope you guys will have a wonderful afternoon with us, and remember that we want to hear lots of questions from you, so ask your teachers to post all the questions that you have and we will be able to try and answer them as best as we can. Now, my name is Tristan, as James mentioned, and on camera today I've got Viam the wildebeest, and we are looking for Tingana, like James said. Sorry, let me get rid of this little spider web that's hanging off the camera. Now, Tingana is one... sorry, so the school's only joining us a little bit later. Sorry about that. But we are looking for Tingana. We're trying to see where he went. So we're in the area where Taylor lost him this morning, and we're just going to check on the far side of the drainage to see if maybe he didn't carry on going northwards inside the riverbed. If not, then we're going to come back to the last position and see if maybe he found a nice comfy spot to lie down. It has been quite hot today, so it would be a perfect place for him to lie down and to rest. It's also very, very dense and thick inside there, so it's not an easy place for us to get into, but we shall persevere and try and see if maybe, just maybe, we can get lucky and find him in amongst the thickets. I think that he's going to be sleeping somewhere inside here. I was saying on our pre-drive that I'm hoping he's going to be in a tree spread out on the boughs of this beautiful jackalberry, or on one of these beautiful scotia trees that we see on the riverbanks, and so that's what I'm hoping for. But I think that is maybe a bridge too far. I think we should just start with trying to at least find him before we start wishing for things like that. Either way, it promises to be a good afternoon. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. The sun is shining, the wind is nice and warm. It's not that cold wind that we've been having the last few days, and so for us it's a beautiful time to be out here. And with this warm weather, I would imagine that places like Buffelshoek Dam, Twin Dams, Treehouse Dam are all going to be good places to check, because I'm sure the elephants, if they're around, are going to go to those areas to have a good wallow this evening, or this afternoon should I say, and there might be some buffalo around, so it's always good places to check. There seems to be a hive of activity in late afternoon. James, it is indeed World Water Day. Happy World Water Day to all of you out there. And your idea is to go and check all the dams. Well, I think that's a fine idea. I'm going to try and give it a shot to see if I can find Tingana. And if not, then I shall make it my mission to go and see how many dams I can actually find. Sorry, I've just seen a track here, but I think it's for a hyena. I just want to make sure. Been driven by a vehicle.
Hello everybody, welcome. Of course, sorry about that. The gremlins are of course hitting hard. Eggsy and our dance did not work very well yesterday, but my name is Taylor, and on camera with me is the great mighty, he should be called Twinkle Toes, Eggsy, as everybody else calls him around camp. And then of course Herbie is checking. You've actually just lost him. He's just gone around the corner because we're about to go through a little drainage, and on a hot day like this you never know what you may see, so he's out keeping us safe. And well, of course, as you can see, we're not driving in a car. We are walking around today, looking for hopefully all sorts of exciting things. And you never know, maybe even Tingana. But come and have a look here. These birds are shouting. Just want to get us to a good point. There's a variety of different birds in that tree. You've got hornbills and starlings and fork-tailed drongos. And if you listen very carefully and you turn your volume up, you'll be able to hear how they're all alarming. You hear the squirrel also shouting. So we're going to try and figure out what it is. Herbie seems to think it's a snake, and we did actually just see a brown snake eagle. These birds wouldn't typically be alarming for a brown snake eagle. They prefer to eat reptiles and things. Should we go and investigate, Herbie? Yep. Right, come with us. Let's go and find out what is making these birds so angry. But it's amazing, you see how they haven't flown away. Now, I apologize, I'm not going to be able to turn back and look at you. Eggsy, be very careful here, as we're walking on some sandstone, and it is quite slippery. See, they're going crazy. They're not flying away. Normally what they will do is actually fly towards it and try and mob whatever is stalking them, even just climbing around in the trees. Eggsy, watch your step again. Let's try not to slip here. Now, if you have just joined us, of course, welcome. This is a live interactive safari. So if you have any questions for myself, James, or Tristan today, you can hashtag Safari Live on Twitter with any cool pictures, any questions, anything you really like. Now, they perched themselves in this knobthorn. However, they were looking towards that very sort of dwarfed jackalberry, which is the one in the middle. They're still going crazy. Now, we're just scanning to see if we can see any movement. It can be quite difficult. Just trying to see if there's an easy way down there. What do you think, Herbert? Sure, let's go a bit closer. Herbie, can we go around? What we're going to do is I think I can see a clear way around, just around this little shrub over there. We might be able to walk back down onto this sandstone embankment. I think if we go forward and then there's an animal pathway. But obviously coming down into a drainage line like this can be a little bit risky. You got to be careful because you don't know what may be here. Now Herbie's checking. Herbie, you scared of snakes, eh? Herbie's scared of snakes, hence why he's edging on the side of caution, which is of course the right thing to do. I'm not too worried about snakes unless their name is Black Mamba. But we're going to see if we can get a bit closer and hopefully stare at a tree for a couple of minutes and see something that moves. But James is out too. Of course, you've met him already. And he's got a herd of impala.
There we are, the beautiful impala. And as we were sitting here cooking quietly in the sun, David said to me, "How long has it been that they have not changed in the fossil record?" And I thought to myself, I said, "David, it's 2.5 million years." Then I thought to myself, I think I'm lying to David, and indeed I was. It is 5 million years that the impala has remained as it is in its current form of design. Now, to give you an idea how long that is compared with some other quite well-known species, such as our own, we've only been the same as we are for about 200,000 years or so. So this impala has been, well, the same way 200% longer than we have been the same way that we are. Is that correct? Yes, roughly. There and thereabouts. So 5 million years ago, the ancestors of humanity were a number of Australopithecines, which basically means, it means southern man, if I'm not mistaken, Australopithecines. They looked very much like chimpanzees. They did, we think, some of them walked upright. They were certainly tree climbers, but they looked nothing like any other species of human being. Well, there's only one species of human being, nor any of the great apes. And while they were knocking about along with saber-toothed cats and various species of elephant, other rhinoceri, here or there was the humble impala at the same time, and unchanged it has remained for those 5 million years. Now that is quite astonishing, because This area, and indeed the whole of Africa has gone, and the whole of the world has gone through an astonishing number of climatic changes, traumatic climatic changes, which have changed the vegetation, they've changed the geology of areas, they've changed the temperature of areas, and caused massive extinctions of lots and lots of species, including our own ancestors. But the impala has weathered the storm, partly because of probably its breeding strategy, although that's a more sort of current how to avoid predators strategy, but I suspect it's got a lot to do with its ability to browse and graze. Its limiting factor, its only limiting factor, being water. So as long as the water levels or the rainfall is above sort of 500 millimeters or so, which is 500 millimeters, David, is 50 centimeters, which in turn is about 18 inches or so, plus minus. Yes, it is. 55. Wait, 1 second. 1 second. I'll get it eventually. It's coming. 45 would be 18, so it's just over 20 inches of rain. I'll get it right eventually. I've only been converting them in my head for 2 years now, so you can't possibly expect me to get it right already. So as long as you've got not that much water and relatively warmish climate, they survive. Now, Panda, you're wondering if impala, which have disappeared into the bushes, are a type of deer. They are not a type of deer, they are a type of antelope. And the antelope are different from the deer. The deer, of course, only found they're found in the New World. They're not found in Africa. They're found in the New World and up into the Palearctic, so into Eurasia. You find, obviously, lots of different kinds of deer. And the main difference, of course, is that the antelope do not lose their horns, like the deer lose their antlers. The horns are part of the skull, and the antlers are not, as far as I'm aware. They've probably just got a cartilaginous joint, a fairly loose one. Then they grow back every single year, as far as I know. Here are some birds, David. I think they are doves. But we don't normally... They've flown away. They are the laughing doves. I was going to say we don't often stop for the laughing dove. Marvellous. Now Tristan has managed to find himself some signal. We have had quite a few gremlin problems, so clearly Taylor's dance did not work yesterday. We're going to hand you over to Tristan and see how his search is going. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, so far, James, we haven't picked up any sign of any Tingana tracks yet, but what we're trying to do is basically we're trying to circle the block and trying to make sure that there's no sign of this leopard moving out into other areas. That means that if we go to where Taylor left him and he had moved out and we hadn't checked first, we'd just be wasting our time and we'd be messing around inside here and he's already then gone somewhere else. But the good news is that there's no tracks coming north out of here, which means that he maybe is headed east a little bit, which is why we're now checking Hyena Road, making sure he hasn't come out to the east. But I have a funny feeling, and so does VM, that he's inside here somewhere in one of these thickets, that he's just taking a little nap, and I feel like it will be somewhere in the drainage line. This up here is a little bit grassy and open. If I was a leopard, I would be sleeping in that drainage. It would be the perfect place to have a nap. The problem with Hyena Road is that it is very, very hard, and so it's quite difficult to actually see any signs of tracks that may or may not be on the road. So we're trying to go very slowly and check. Very pretty starling that just flew off, unfortunately. But it is, like I say, it's been hot enough today for him to sleep and to lie down, and we know that Tingana, when he does lie down, can sleep for quite a while, very, very settled, so he doesn't move as much as somebody like Shadow. Shadow tends to move a lot and is always walking around. The other nice thing with Tingana is often he walks on roads. So like we saw this morning with his tracks, is that he marched on the roads pretty much the whole way. So I would imagine that it's going to be very similar in this case, is that if he has decided to walk, that we should pick up his footprints on the road itself and therefore then be able to find him. It's amazing how different areas drain better than others. This road that we're driving on is still showing quite a few signs of moisture, so you can actually see where there has been water sitting on the surface of the road, even still from when we had the rain. Now all the other roads that I've driven on are baked very, very hard and dry now, and they're almost getting a dust layer on them again after all the vehicles have churned them up. You probably find the reason why this road has also got quite a lot of water on it is because generally this road is not driven in the wet, and so the vehicles are not pushing water off the road, and they're not being driven and churned nearly as much, and that's why they end up having a little bit more water on the surface. It's also the soil type here is not good, and we're in an active seep area, so this whole area is a seep line, so after a bit of rain we get lots of water that comes out and onto the road. James, this is a good question. I like this question. So he says we often talk about things being area specific, and which animal do I think kind of utilizes that the most, and it is area specific. And I would say, I suppose if we look at it on a very small scale, which is what Djuma would be in the grand scheme of things, then it's a little bit tougher to see area specific animals, but we do see some. So things like bush babies are quite area specific. They will try and find certain parts that are wooded and very, very treed. So like we were talking about it last night, funny enough, when we were trying to find bush babies, is that you try and find areas with certain species of trees that bush babies can utilize. So areas where you've got lots of terminalias, so active seep lines like where we are now is a good place for terminalias, and you try and search around those areas for them. Then you'll find things like leopard and lion, not so much in this area, because pretty much the whole of Djuma, Cheetah Plains, Arethusa is all pretty similar in terms of the ecosystem, and I mean we do get varying amounts of rainfall which will dictate that some animals will utilize certain areas more, but really the animals are quite widely distributed throughout this area. I think when we refer to area specific and animals that are area specific, you've got to start looking at a much broader spectrum, and you've got to start going out into more parts of South Africa. So a very clear-cut example of that would be the Kalahari Desert in the northwestern part of South Africa, as opposed to this wooded savanna that we have here. Now in the Kalahari there's none of this. It's desert, it's sand, and yet you still find things like lions able to survive, leopards that are surviving there, cheetah, but their habits and the way that they do things is completely different to what we see here. You'll find things like the leopards much, much smaller. The male leopards there are about half the size of our males here. They're about the same size as the females, and the female leopards are half the size of our females, so a lot smaller because they don't get nearly as much protein in their diet as what we see here. Then you've got animals that can only survive there, so you've got things like Cape foxes, bat-eared foxes, which we don't get here, brown hyenas that require arid, dry areas to survive, and so that's probably a little bit more area specific than what we here in Djuma have. Here in Djuma we have other things that they don't get in the Kalahari, so we'll get a lot of different bird species that are reliant on this wooded savanna, elephants, what else have we got there, buffalo, rhinos. They all need big grassland areas, so they're not going to be able to occur in those desert sections. Then the only other thing that we could probably scale down towards Djuma to make area specific would be plants and then insects that relate to those plants. So I know you were asking about animals, but I suppose we can throw insects into this category. You'll find insects will only occur at certain areas with certain vegetation. So a lot of the butterfly species, they will be restricted to an area where a certain plant grows. Like, let's say, the monarchs. And the monarchs need to sequester the toxins from milkweed. So if there's no milkweed around, you're going to find very few monarchs in that area. And that's a little bit more area specific on the animal front than possibly things like lion and leopard and elephants within the Djuma area. Now I hope that kind of answers your question. Like I say, you need to look at a broader spectrum. Carry on, you're a new viewer, so welcome to the show. Lovely to have you with us. I'm really going to look forward to hearing from you and hearing all the questions that you may have as we continue through our drive and hopefully going forward as well. And you want to know what the temperature is at the moment. Well, I'm not 100% sure exact temperature, but I would imagine that it's about 30 degrees Celsius, which would be in Fahrenheit around, I would say, the 80s. So somewhere in the 80s. That's about what it feels. There we go. It is 30 degrees exactly and 86 Fahrenheit. So it is quite warm today. It's not as hot as it can get in the deep summer. So when we're in January, December, those months, you can sometimes get days here that are well over 40 degrees. The hottest day I've ever had here in the Savi Sands was 49.5 degrees. And I say a half because that half may seem to have made a difference because the day before was 49 and it just seemed that much hotter. So in Fahrenheit, that's about 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very, 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 very warm. So it's not a pleasant experience to be in temperatures like that at all. You end up feeling like you are being cooked from the inside and baked in an oven. Now, if you are going to ask questions and you want to participate, and there's a whole lot of new viewers that could potentially be on here and you don't know how to get hold of us, remember you can get hold of us on Twitter at #SafariLive, and we will be able to then answer all of your questions. Right, Viam, I think we're going to have to go inside this little drainage line and go and look around. Okay, but we're going to go look and see if we can find any signs of where Taylor had Tingana. And while we do that, and talking of Taylor, let's go across to her and see what tracks she's got and managed to find.
Well, Tristan, we've actually decided to do something a little bit different today, other than just your normal tracking. I thought that my theme of the day would actually be to chat about the various things that you have to learn about to become a guide. So just a sort of an introduction. And one of the most important things, of course, for us as guides, and when you are tracking, is to learn the tracks and the signs that they leave behind. So this segment will be called Taylor's Tricks of the Trade and Tracking Tips. Try and say that 10 times. I was actually supposed to say it the other way around. Hey, Eggsy. Yeah. Eggsy gave me that line and then I messed it up a little bit. So it's actually, what is it? Taylor's
Tracking Tips and Tricks of the Trade.
Taylor's Tracking Tips and Tricks of the Trade. See, I couldn't even do it. Right, but I do have something for you. And now these are actually really difficult ones. Here's the first track that I really want to show you over here. You can see I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you a reference. There's my hand. So it's very small. Here's the second track, which is over here in this circle. I'll use my other hand. Hopefully they're the same size. Also, again, quite small. Difficult one. From today, and it's two animals that we see. I'll give you a tip because they're not easy tracks, especially because they're so small. Is that we see them on quarantine all the time, both of these two species. So if you think that you're good enough and you can give it a bash, even if you don't know, it's fun, because I'll tell you why it isn't if you've given a particular answer. #SafariLive on Twitter with what you think. Track 1, the first one I showed you, this little one, and then track 2, this one over here. Now, it's very important when animals walk around, they obviously leave evidence. Sometimes on really hard gravel roads, they're not going to leave a footprint at all, but they'll leave other signs. For instance, early in the morning when an animal decides to move off of the road and walk through the grass will often bend in the direction that the animal was going. And because the dew, it's obviously wet the grass, it does actually stay folded. So that's an easy way to try and establish direction. But it does help, of course, if you can just pick up one track. And then like we did this morning, we didn't find Tingana by his footprints. We found them because some of you heard him calling on the dam cam, which helped us out a huge amount. So there we go. So it's tracks, the ones that they leave behind, scrape marks, or whether they've scent marked, defecated, so they're feces and dung too. And then, of course, as well as hearing them. All the animals make various sounds too. So hopefully, and there's a number of other tracks that we can do here, but I thought we would start with these two and we'll probably progress as we go along. Like I said, #SafariLive with your answers is what you think it is, and then we'll just wait for Megan to feed us through some guesses. We'll do a couple of guesses and hopefully some of you will get them right. Like I said, not an easy one to get through. Eggsy, how are your legs? Eggsy's in the... you can stand if you like. I'm just going to stay. Okay, I'll stand with you, Eggsy. I'll stand with you. Just give Eggsy's legs a break. It's impressive how they've got the strongest quads and all those types of things. Hey, Eggsy? Good muscles. Right, let's see. Now, remember what we always say with tracking. We won't go too far away from them. Oh, hang on. We've got some guesses. So P-Heart, you've guessed Impala as track number 1 and Warthog as track number 2. You got one right, but I'm not going to tell you which one just yet, because one of those things that you've said is there, but I don't think you got them in the right order. There we go. We'll wait for another 2 more guesses from 2 different viewers, and then I will tell you. Now, the important thing with tracking is, okay, obviously it's difficult now because I've now walked around and squashed all the other evidence, but when you are tracking, don't just look at one thing. That's probably one of the most important things, is search around. Have a look on the road. Porcupines, for example, are actually a really amazing animal to track, because normally what you first see is you see the diggings on the side of the road. So you see a big hole in the ground with bits of vegetation off the side. You have a little look closer, you have a look, have the roots been nibbled? Because it can be a number of different things. It could have been a hyena digging in the ground too. They will dig for things. Jackal, or with the porcupine's case, is they bite off the roots. That's what they're going for. So you can see that, or they'll gnaw at the roots and you can see their teeth mark. And then if you go further along the road, you'll probably start to see some footprints. And you may even see some drag marks from the quills, because even just looking at a porcupine track, you'd easily get confused and think that it was a honey badger. Honey badger's track's just a little bit more broader, and then of course it will lack the quill trails that a porcupine will leave behind, but they do similar things, of course. Porcupines and honey badgers both digs, scorpions, all sorts of different things. Natasha, you've guessed impala and zebra. Are there any more guesses, Megan? We'll do one more. And then almost, you got one of those, and Natasha as well, but you got the second one right, zebra. Very good. We will just wait for one more, and then I'll go into why. Okay, and now Jared, you've said for number 1 Nyala, and for number 2 you've said Impala. Unfortunately, Jared, you're not correct. Let me go back down. Sorry, Eggsy. Let me show you why. Now, Natasha was the only one to get one of these tracks correct, and I'm sure you're also all guessing away now, but then you can see if you were right or wrong. So let's start with number 1. If you have a look at this track, it's tiny. It's pretty much the size of half of my thumb. You can see it's really, really small. But if you have a look over here, see how square it is? Now, there are very few, I'm just going to move my hand away. There are very few animals out here that have a square track like this. See that? So this, if you think back, I always describe it as a matchbox-shaped track, is a warthog. This is a little warthog, a piglet. So if it was an adult and if it was in mud, or even a little one, you would actually see the false hooves back over here. But because it's so sandy and there's sort of rock underneath, you can see you hit the bedrock almost straight away. There's not much ground left due to all the grading of the roads, so it doesn't give enough sort of depth for the warthog to step completely into the track, so that's what's lacking. The only other thing that this track can look like is a bush pig track. However, I've never seen a bush pig in the Sabi Sands. I don't think that they really occur up in this area. So that's a little piglet. Now the second one, and Natasha got it right, is a zebra foals track. This is a young zebra's track over here. So if you know horses, you should be able to look at this track and almost identify it immediately. It's exactly the same shape as a horse's hoof. Can you see that? Amazing. But it's difficult. But if you were to look around here, you would have seen the other zebra's tracks, and you would have seen they were much bigger. And often, young animals' tracks throw you off. And I remember I'd look at an Inyala track, and in the Eastern Cape, Inyala, bushbuck, and kudu, very much the same as up here. And I'd look, and I'd see this really tiny one, and I'd think to myself, what is it? It's too big to be a bushbuck. Oh, the toes are not pointy enough to be a bushbuck. What is it? Got confused and give a random answer. And then our assessors would always laugh at us and say, remember, baby animals have got small feet too, and their hoof doesn't really, whatever their foot is, doesn't really change, rather than it just gets bigger. But the same things apply. So, for example, with a kudu track, of course, I'll try and draw one, but I won't draw a very good one. The widest part of the track is actually on the outside, and that doesn't change. Whether it's a big one, an old one, a little one, brand new born, who knows? The track is always going to be widest on the outside. And a bushbuck, the tip is very, very sharp. It almost looks like it disappears into the sand. And hopefully, what I'd like to look for is maybe a common dake and a steenbok track today. And this is actually a lovely substate to track on, because when you get towards, say, a road like Cheetah cutline's a good one. The sand is really nice, but there's just too much sand. So a small animal, like a piglet, warthog piglet, or a zebra foal, or a steenbok, or a duiker, their tracks get completely lost in the sand. Whereas this is quite nice, and it's not too windy today either, so we're not going to have too much damage. Right, Eggsy? Eggsy's going to try and get up. We both try and get up now. There we go. So that's just a little bit about tracking, of course. Let's keep going. Herbie's all the way down there. Now, Lisa and Matt, you were wondering what is the hardest animal to track. Well, you know what, Lisa and Matt, it actually goes a little bit further than that. I find that animals are not necessarily difficult to track. It's just the substrate that you're tracking on. So if you come down and you go all the way to the southeast corner of South Africa, where I'm from, Port Elizabeth, and you go to the game reserves there's no sandy areas like this. Very, very few, maybe if you go down towards the rivers. But other than that, it's pretty much gravel and mud. When it's not raining, mud is hard and doesn't leave a trace of a track at all. So that was always really, really tough, trying to guess where the animals were going to go. And that's where it became important to learn the routes that certain animals walk, because that would help you out a lot. Because you go sections of kilometers where you couldn't see anything at all. I think hardest animal to track, something like you're going to have to go right down to small animals, something like an aardvark, a porcupine, probably almost impossible. But ones that we work on a regular basis, maybe a leopard, maybe Tingana on foot. If you've seen what he does and the routes that he walks. The other day, when did we do a walk, Eggsy? 2 mornings ago. Yesterday morning, eh? Haven't you walked with me? I can't remember who walked with me. I think it was David yesterday morning. When we were tracking, we saw the male leopard tracks, and I showed you all. We came across some of Tingana's dung in the end, and he'd been zigzagging. He defecated over here, then he walked, and he scent marked across the road, and then he went back this way, but he'd come from here. So his tracks were going along that way, and then he went and smelled something in the bushes, walked back around again, carried on, disappeared down that way, came back onto the road, did another loop around, and he gives you an absolute run around. So it's difficult I think it's difficult to track animals that are on a territorial patrol. Just because of a scent or a sound gets their attention, they obviously go and they sort of look. They've almost got butterfly syndrome, if that makes any sense. They get very distracted. Even though they are determined, they're making sure that they're marking regular spots. They are constantly picking up on every other scent. A lion that walked there, leopard that walked there. Was it another male? Was it a female? I think I saw something back there. I'm just going to go back and have a quick look and things like that. So I think that's probably the most difficult. The resident male leopard we used to track a lot down in the southern sands, Mashabeni, he was actually a relatively easy boy. He had the same routes that he'd walk all the time, which helped quite a bit. And once you got to know him, he didn't really change too much. But Tingana, I've yet to track that leopard on foot successfully. We just got him the other day, luckily, in the car from Triple M, and then he was on Zoe's road. We got very lucky there. Other than that, he gives you the slip. But we're going to go back to Tristan now, who's still searching for the man that we speak of, Tingana, and we're going to go and help him by heading into the drainage line.
Well, Taylor, we are already in the drainage line looking for him, and I'm trying to find any sign, and we found one track where you left him going straight north into the drainage line and going up in. It's not traversed by a vehicle. There's no ways to get a vehicle any further than where we tried, so I'm now trying to find a way out again, which is proving to be quite difficult. It's a very, very dense, thick area, as you can see all around us. It is the perfect place for a leopard to hide out. So I'm sure he's in here, and it's just going to be a matter of finding him. And I was just saying to VM now, because of how thick it is in here, if we walk around, I'm sure that we'll bump into him, but he's going to move off quickly and we won't find him again. So that's why we came down with a vehicle, to try and see if we can find him on the vehicle, so that we don't prompt him to run and to try and get away from us too much. I don't know, VM, I don't think we're going to be able to get through this way. Andrew, You're a new viewer, so welcome. It's great to have you on board and lovely to hear that you're asking so many questions. It's good to ask questions and to learn, and you want to know how big an area a male leopard can be territorial or cover. Well, it depends on the male and it depends on the density, so careful there, Viam, you alright? Just got to get Viam out of the spikes and through. It depends on the area. So here in the Sabi Sands we have a very high density of leopard, which means that the males' territories are actually quite small relative to males in other areas. So if you go into the Kalahari deserts, Namibias, even the Botswana areas, some of those places you'll only have a leopard every 60,000 square kilometers, which is crazy amount, 60,000 hectares even, let's call it. So that's a lot. So that's, there's only one in all of that, whereas here we probably have a male leopard about every 6 to 8,000 hectares. That's their territorial area. So in the section that Djuma encompasses and where we traverse, we have most territorial males, 3 of them. Right, so Quarantine, Tingana, who we're trying to find now, and then we have Anderson in the west. So it's quite a healthy population where we are here, and then there's a lot of young males and older males. So there's some older males that have been overthrown that are now just nomadic, and younger males that are also nomadic. So it just depends on the different areas and the amount of competition and whether or not they can find areas that they can occupy without competition. So we're just very fortunate that there's a high density here, and that's why the territories are smaller and we see a lot more of them. Yeah, it's going to be much easier from there, Viam, you're right. So Viam is just guiding me along as well, because I'm waffling on and not paying too much attention. It seems like one vehicle went up that way and another one up this way. But what we'll try to do is just try go a little bit further on and see if we can find another access point into this riverbed to see if there's any chance we can find more signs of him. I'm sure, like I say, he's laid down in here somewhere. It's just got such a leopard feel to it, and the fact that it's so shady and cool in there in comparison to where we are now. Now as we've come out, the sun is beating down. It's a lot warmer up here than it was further down there. So I think it's going to be a much better place for a leopard to lie. It's just got to try and find exactly where he decided to lie. But it's encouraging. At least we have the track for him and we know the direction he's moving. So while I continue to look around here, I know Taylor's coming to help me. In fact, I can see her down the road behind me, and so she's going to go inside here and just help me look around. Let's go across to her and see what her plans are and how she's going to help us.
Well, Tristan, we're coming to help you, of course. So, as you said, you just saw us a moment ago. We've just jumped off of Central onto Gari Main, and now we're going to probably enter this drainage system and hope to pick up on Tingana. I'm very impressed that Tristan actually made an attempt to go down into that drainage line, because from what I saw this morning, it was an absolute nightmare to try and get in there. Herbie, are we going to go in through where this jackalberry is? So I think there's actually a nice animal pathway and a section that the animals use to go up and down into this drainage line, because they'll choose the easiest route that they can. However, if you remember that elephant sighting at Treehouse Down and the Ellies swimming, you saw that as well. Elephants, if they want to, can go up a steep bank. So we're going to stick behind Herbie here. I've actually never been in here. Oh, I've been up a little bit further when I was tracking kahumas once. But otherwise, I haven't really been in this dam. Oh, my goodness, this is a magnificent jackalberry. Look at this. Look at how massive. I actually want to go towards the trunk of the tree very quickly. So just easy, watch your step here. We can't even see logs on foot. No. There's a spider web in there. My goodness, I don't know how I feel actually about going in here with this long grass. Let's try here, Eggsy. Obviously, you've got to be very careful and watch where you step as you are walking. You don't want to get... Sure. Look how big it is. Look at this. This must be one of the biggest jackalberries I've seen. We saw massive ones as well in Zambia, but we also saw nyala berries, which look quite similar to a jackalberry. But I think in the Sabi Sands, this must definitely be in the top 3 big jackalberries I've seen. Herbie, do you think this is the biggest one on the property? This is definitely the biggest one on the property. It is massive. It must be exceptionally old. And I wouldn't like to climb this tree. I can only imagine the types of snakes that are living up and in here. Right. Let's not get too distracted. We're going to continue our tracking search for just a little bit longer. Oh, felt something crawling on my leg. Right, let's get out of here. I don't like the things crawling around, so we're going to go and hopefully, we're going to have to be a little bit quieter now. We're going to head down into the drainage and search for Tingana in his last spot. James has finally got signal and he's on Cheetah Plains. Let's jump on back with him.
I do have signal, I do, but I must just tell you we had a wonderful sighting at the Chitwa Dam, well, of the dam, not much else. So yes, I suppose you missed out on some scenery, but not much in the way of animals. Here we are on the Chitwa clearings. We're heading towards the Chitwa airstrip now. We're pretty much following exactly the same route as we did earlier today, this morning, hoping to pick up on some cheetah that have been reported from Cheetah Plains. But on the way, we'll hopefully find a few other interesting and attractive things to show you. Such as that hoop-hoop. 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 Did you see where it went? No. Oh, yes, it was there, David. There it is gone. There we are. It's now almost in Cape Town. Fantastic. Okay, good. Let's keep going. That was a hoop-hoop. So named because that's what it sounds like. It goes whoop-whoop. Let's try and find something a little more stationary, shall we? Hello, Kyle. You're probably a man after my own heart, thinking about what out here. What if I was to be an animal? What animal would that be, and why? And for me, the only question I ask is the one you've just asked, and that is, which animal has no natural predators? The answer is the elephant, really. I mean, yes, I suppose lions might take small ones, and in some parts of Africa, when things are very desperate, they can take quite big ones. Yes, that's why I'm going down this way. Thank you, David. And so I would say an elephant, Kyle. Otherwise, rhinos, I guess, very few natural predators except human beings. And likewise, hippos. But really, elephants, the only truly unpredated or unpreyed upon mammals. Stop in the shade and look at those pigs. And then, Kyle, I suppose, you know, the other one you might think about is birds. I mean, we talk about animals and we normally mean mammals, but there are many birds that have very few predators. If I was a martial eagle, for example, there'd be very few birds willing to take me on, very few predators capable of taking me on. So martial eagle would be a good one. Many of the raptors, actually, many of the big raptors. Hello. Hello, Mama Pinky. Mama Pinky, you reckon that the landscape looks very beautiful. I have to agree with you. I think it looks stunning this afternoon. And it's one of those sort of early autumn afternoons, I suppose, when the sky is a deep blue. We've got lovely sunshine. And of course, much of these clearings at Chitwa have been mowed. They've been mowed clear of grass. And so they look like parkland. And that means that they're very attractive to the human psyche. They've got tall trees, but we can see underneath them, we can see what there's there. And for us as human beings, that's why we make our own city parks like that, with short grass and trees for shade. And, if, you know, way back when, there would have been trees not for shade, but for defense, for protection from whatever wanted to try and eat us, which back then was just about everything. Genevieve, you're wondering about risk-taking in animals and whether I've seen an animal take a risk. I'm not sure that I've seen one personally. I think the greatest risk I've seen an animal take was when Jamie was watching Tundi with the baboons, and they came after her cub, and she ran in to distract them, and she pulled the attention of the big male baboon off, and he chased her, and the cub got away. She subsequently lost one of them, but that little cub, well, one of those little cubs was Tamba, who we've met a few times. So I think that would probably be the only animal that I've seen take some huge risks. Animals are naturally risk averse. They don't take huge risks unless there are males fighting with each other. Then they do. And you'll find that that doesn't have a huge impact on the survival of the species, largely because, well, animals that take risks, or males that take risks to fight with each other, they're the ones that end up with the ladies. And out here, if you're an antelope or you're a lion or something like that, there are very few, there are very few species out here as mammals that require there to be as many males as there are females in the population. So that kind of risk-taking, where they fight with each other, does take place quite a lot. But you'll find otherwise, risk-taking is fairly rare, because it doesn't make evolutionary sense. Risk-takers, while they have high rewards, sometimes often end up dead, which from an evolutionary point of view is a dead end, if you'll excuse the use of the word dead twice. And it's therefore that you'll find, of course, that female animals take fewer risks than males often. And I think you'll probably find that in human beings as well. Although that's got a lot to do with testosterone and the idiocy that it causes. Rachel, you're wondering if these warthogs sound like domestic pigs. They can make domestic pig sounds. They can make that sort of grunting sometimes. You like that, David? Yes, I think so. They also squeal. They're able to squeal quite loudly. If you catch one, they will squeal. It's a very distressing sound, and we know that pigs squeal as well. So yeah, quite similar sounds. I'm just trying to think if it makes any other kind of sound. Nope, I think it's the squeal and the grunt, pretty much. What were you going to say there, David?
Can we hear the squeal?
The squeal, you want to hear the squeal? See, look how distressed they are now. Looking up, thinking, what an absolute tosser. They'd be right. Unfortunately, they only make that noise when something like Tingana has caught them and they're trying to get away. Reese, a question I don't know that I can answer. You say, why have they got that long mantle along their backs? Why is that hair so long? Reese, I can only assume that it's for disguise, so that they look like grass when they're walking through the grass. I'm talking rubbish, Reese. I actually have no idea. I guess it could be signaling to each other. You know, if they're angry or upset, I suppose standing the mantle up on the back of the back, a bit like a dog, for example, possibly gives some sort of emotional signal to others. I'm not sure. It's a very good question, though. I'm also interested in recent farmers why they don't have any hair on the rest of their bodies, given that they are so small and they are sensitive to temperature changes. Well, while I ponder these things and why there is a ridge on the back of the warthog's back, Tristan seems to be at a place where swimming might be in the offing.
Well, if these little warthogs swim here, I feel like they might be in a little bit of danger. Buffelshoek Dam is looking absolutely full to the brim. There's no space for much more water. So I would imagine that Boris the Blade or Vladimir the Impaler, which are our two crocodiles that we see every now and then, if they're around, then those warthogs are going to have a tough time. But what there is here is 2 hippos. So there you go, you can see the 2 hippos sitting there. They've found a home at Buffelshoek Dam now that there's lots of water in there. Is there 3 hippos there? Looks like 3 maybe, Viam. And see, they'll go in and out, and they'll be able to hold their breath for a very short period of time. So generally they say in books about 5 to 7 minutes, but it's very seldom you'll actually see a hippo hold their breath for that long. Normally it's only a minute or 2, and then they pop their nostrils up, as you can see there. Now sometimes they're a little bit shy, and all you're going to see is just these little nostrils coming up and then going back under again. So that's when they're a little bit nervous of what's going on around them. So a big object like the vehicle, they're just seeing what it is, and then they go under and they try and stay safe. They know that water is their safe point, whereas out on land they're a little bit more vulnerable. But they have found themselves a beautiful spot to be in. There used to be a lot of hippos here, but now I believe Taylor has found something exciting, so let's get across to her very, very quickly.
We've just spotted Tingana. He's just up the bank. Come with us. So, Tingana, we're not going to talk too loudly. He's not a very relaxed leopard like Karula on foot. So we just want to get to a point where we can see where he's going. Sorry, Eggsy. It's up a steep hill. I think he's actually gone out into the open. But it is so thick through here that he blends in so well to the vegetation that he's probably just keeping an eye out on us. He hasn't growled, he hasn't done anything along those lines. And we've called Tristan in. We've told him to come back to exactly the spot where we'd actually left him this morning and where Tristan saw our tracks going off. So hopefully, if Tristan comes through, he'll be able to see him. But now, I don't know if we're going to be able to get out of here this way. It's so thick, especially for Eggsy with the big aerial. What do you think? Do you think we must maybe go back and around again? Do you think he would have...
Let's wait for Tristan to get in, then we'll guide us as to where to.
Okay. We probably aren't going to push Tingana. Tingana is not used to people on foot. He's not like Karula. He's not like the cubs. Just listening. But we're fine. He's a little bit skittish. Now, I was hoping that we were going to be able to very quickly move up this bank and just get a quick glimpse of him. I don't know where he's gone now. Rebecca, please can you tell Tristan, if you can hear me, tell Tristan to answer the game drive radio. Herbert's trying to get hold of him. The birds are starting to alarm as well. I don't think just because of us, because I think they've seen Tingana moving. As we came through here, the birds started making a bit of a noise. So they obviously were flying above him. Yeah, Tristan's just on the radio now to Herbie. Babblers are up above us. There was some black-back puff-strike. Black-back puff-back. Right, let's go down. We're going to go down this way. Herbie can stay here. I have a feeling what this leopard is going to do. Sorry, Eggsy, we may keep chasing you up and down now. I don't think he's necessarily going to go out into the open. I think he's going to come back down on the bank again. So I'd like to weave around. Can hear where the green woodhoopers are alarming. They can probably see him. Eggsy, are you ready to go through here again? Eggsy's going to have to bend down now, so I apologize if the camera goes all over. He unfortunately can't get through as easy as I can. Let's go quickly. Right, let's just quickly take a quick look around the corner. I can hear, no, I think we're actually a couple of steps behind him. I can hear the birds now alarming, going back towards that massive jackalberry which we've come from. Let's go across to Tristan and see if he has any better luck.
Well, we're just trying to get to where we were, so it just goes to show we were right there. He was right there somewhere. It was just a matter of trying to find him. Now, I think where he was lying is probably in a tambuti thicket where I turned around, where you saw us turning there. And there was a little tambuti thicket just north of us there. And the last track I had was going into that tambuti thicket. And I said to Wiem that there was birds alarm calling, and I thought that maybe he could potentially be in there. So I was right on that hunch. It just can't get a car there. So what we're going to try to do is try and get to where Taylor had him and see if we can't try and get a vehicle in somewhere and be able to actually view him. It's going to be quite tricky, especially if he starts to move eastwards. Then we're going to have a real tough time keeping up with him, but let's hope that we can at least try. It's good news though. It's a very good job done by Herbie and Taylor. They seem to be on fine form today, and Taylor was on fine form this morning when she found Tingana, so I think her and Tingana have something going. I think Wiem will be very excited. As Taylor mentioned this morning, Tingana is Viem's favorite leopard, so one of your favorites. Sorry, Wiem, let me qualify that. One of his favorites. So Wiem shall be very, very happy. Now I've just got to try and negotiate this quite steep and rough crossing that we're going through. It's a little bit bouncy as we go, so I do apologize if the camera is shaking a little bit. Just trying to get there as quick as possible before he disappears into an area we can't go. Hold on there, Wiem. So after all the rain, some of these crossings have become a little bit washed away and bouncy and difficult to negotiate, so I'm going to go a little bit slower than we normally would, but we're not too far from where I came out of the drainage, so we should be there in the next little bit. Right, so somewhere here, they said to me he went south a little bit from where I came out, so we're just gonna try and get in at the same point, and then hopefully they'll be able to guide us in from there as to where exactly I need to be. I'll make sure that I can stay in contact with Herbie as well. Herbie. Okay, confirm just coming on the same tracks where you saw me coming out. Alright, so we're going to go across to Taylor because I think she's still got a view of him while I chat to Herbie and try to get us in there and find a little gap that we can be able to find him.
Right, we're not going to chase this leopard anymore. He's a little bit skittish. I can hear Tristan. We're right near the road, so we're going to let Tristan take over, and hopefully he'll be able to relocate. Not all leopards like to be on foot. We can actually see where he was running over here. We could hear all the birds were giving his presence away as well. You're not going to see much, but there's a bit of dirt that's scratched here. There's a little bit over here. I can hear Tristan's vehicle. But I honestly think, I don't know if Tristan's going to do it. Tristan, you're going to have to pull some tricks out of your sleeve, my friend. He's moved all the way down south. Can hear the birds starting to alarm as they go down. So Tristan is going to have to race back towards that jackalberry again. He mustn't waste any time here. He must keep going. Let me just, otherwise I don't think we're going to get this leopard again. But we shall try. Famba! Yeah, let's see if Tristan can get him. And that's just the thing, is that things like this, animals on foot, are not necessarily always the most comfortable. So we got to see him twice, very, very quickly, just to where he was moving around. And hopefully now we'll hand it over to Tristan and he'll be able to work his magic. He was on the move, and this is probably one of the most difficult parts about tracking, is actually being able to relocate on a leopard or a lion or an elephant or rhino once they've spotted you, especially if they have got a little bit of a fright. But it's a good thing. We don't want the animals to lose their fear of humans. It's the only thing that we have that helps us out on a bushwalk. It's the same thing, like I always say, if someone had to give me the challenge, would you ever face off a big male baboon that's lost its fear for humans, so it's been fed by humans? Or if you could face a charging male lion, a wild male lion, which one would you choose? I would choose the wild animal every single time, no matter what it was, even if it was a buffalo, than facing something that of course has lost its fear completely. Now I can hear Tristan doing all sorts of bundu bashing at the moment, meaning he's gone off-road. So I wonder if he's seen maybe his tracks on the road ducking back down into the drainage. He'll feel safe in this drainage line. There's a lot of coverage. There's trees for him to climb up. There's long grass. He can put a drainage line, a natural barrier between him, and there's quite a few drainage lines through. It actually splits almost into 3. Lots of water. It's nice and cool. So I don't think he's going to go too far. It's now just playing a game of, can Tristan manage to get in to this drainage line with all of this vegetation that's around? That's probably the trickiest part, I think. I can hear it, Tristan. Now there is an access spot. Let's see. Herbie's calling us back down this way. So we'll go, but we're not going to go and track this leopard anymore. We're going to leave him completely, because what I don't want to do is, now that there's a vehicle in this sighting, we don't want to put pressure on. We don't want to all of a sudden come across Tingana and we've cornered him between us and Tristan, because that's of course when things can go wrong. I can hear Tristan's vehicle. Let's quickly hop onto the back of his car and see if he's having any luck.
Well, so far no luck, and I don't think we're going to find him at all, because in here there's nowhere I can go other than the drainage line. So if he's run up on either side, it's pretty much, that's it. There's not really much I can do about it. Western way for me to get to the western bank at all. So just trying to see where exactly he went from there, but I don't think we're going to find him in this, unfortunately. It's not a very easy area to look for a leopard, particularly one that's now seen somebody on foot and is going to be moving quite quickly to try get away. He's not going to be very patient and sitting and relaxing very nicely, so I don't know if we're going to be able to find him. So I'm just looking around trying to see if there's any sign of him anywhere here, but I don't see anything. I'm going to try to turn around. And then westwards. So I want to just go down towards the big jackalberry that Taylor was showing you earlier and see if he's maybe not headed that way. But you can see it's not easy in here to negotiate. And like I said, it's going to be an animal to see. Right, well, we can figure this out and see if we can actually find him and see if he's actually in here and be able to sort of get our vehicle to wherever he may be. Let's go across to James and see how he's doing on Cheetah Plains.
I'm very sad about that. I was very excited when Taylor had found Tingana. She deserves it thoroughly for her efforts this morning. She found him this morning, found him again now, and the blighter has decided to hide from them. But really, it is so thick, and as I'm sure that Tristan and Taylor have said, it's almost impossible to stay with a cat through this grass. And, you know, earlier on in the drive, I was following some lion tracks that are around Zoe's Road, that big Balanites tree that David and I saw on our run today, didn't we, David? Yes, we started to look around quite carefully when we saw those tracks. And, you know, they went off the road and they looked pretty fresh to me. That lion could have been lurking anywhere and we would not have spotted her. And so much hope for Tingana. Well, I do for him, but for our ability to see him is what I mean. Anyway, here we are on Cheetah Plains. We're going to check all the water holes because it is very hot. The first place we'll go to is Trifecta Pan Water. See what we can find there. And then we're going to go, as I said, there was reports of cheetah on the eastern boundary, and perhaps we'll get a good view of them. That would be lovely. Hello, Mandy. That's a difficult question to answer for me because it's probably not the most heroic answer. You say, is there a certain type of animal that I like to track the most? Yes, there is. A rhino. And I like to track a rhino the most because it's the easiest animal to track. I don't have great eyes, you see. I'm not very good at seeing depth of perception, so I find tracking something like a lion or a leopard deeply frustrating because I just don't see the same detail that someone like Herbert, for example, sees. You know, he can discern a track basically in the air. He can tell where the animal lifted its leg, he can see so well. Anyway, yeah, so I really like tracking rhino because I find it very satisfying. And I remember the first time I ever found a rhino on foot alone, I had gone down, it was a hot, probably round about this time of year actually, hot afternoon. I wasn't driving guests at the time, and so I went off on a little walk, and a friend of mine and I went down, and we went to a pan where we thought maybe there would have been a rhino during the course of the day, and indeed there was. There were some tracks, and they headed off into the bush. There's an elephant. Is that an elephant or is it a termite mound? It's a l'éléphant. Anyway, we walked off following the tracks, and as I've said to you, rhino drags its feet, so they're quite easy to track if you're an incompetent tracker. And they also drop mud during the course of the day, so when the grass was short, you could see little pieces of mud because it had been lying in a pan all day long. And so eventually, after about 35 minutes or so, we found this rhino grazing. As the sun went down, it was just the most typically beautiful African scene, and I felt deeply satisfied. That was the first time I ever tracked a rhino on my own. And I must confess, I mean, a lot of the time that I've tracked leopards, it's been really pretty much just, you know, lucky guesses. There's this bull just turned to face us as we arrived, perhaps not too pleased with the sound of either my voice or the vehicle. I'm going to hope that it's the vehicle and not my voice, because I can't not talk. That's what I'm paid to do. And Karen, you were asking if we'd seen any elephants. We hadn't today, and I'm quite surprised, but here's the first one. He's a big bull. He's the same bull we saw this morning. Can you see that? If we look at his ear, the ear that you can see, his right ear on our left, the same bull that was not quite harassing, but certainly being a bit of a bully to a much younger bull. He had that rip in his ear, so this is the same chap we saw then. And he gave me a slightly uncomfortable vibe this morning as well. Isn't that interesting? Let me just quickly call this in. Stations 1 elephant bull at 3 in a row pans. Somebody's just asked if there's an elephant here. Now, I'm just listening. Ooh. I heard something about that. We're on our way there to have a look. Thanks. Just an update on the cheetah coming south towards this area. Let's just spend a little bit of time with this elephant, because if there are cheetah there, they ain't going to be moving. I think they'll be lying down. You say this is a monster bull. It is a monster bull. I'd say he's about 35 years old. He's going to get a little bit bigger than this. He'll fill out slightly more. His tusks will get slightly longer. But if you look at the back legs, you can see that he's got a little bit of sort of wetness on the back of his legs, indicating that perhaps he's in must. We'll try and sneak a little bit closer. Now, you see, as soon as I start the engine, he starts shaking his head and getting a little bit irritated, so I'm just going to wait here. Now I've managed to get a view of his bottom. It'll be the ultimate insult if he then decides to, well, drop those rather large soccer balls. But he's listening now to us. He's not drinking anymore. He's just kind of put his trunk into his mouth. He's having a listen, seeing what he can hear Isn't this fascinating? I just find it so interesting. This elephant had before I'd seen him at 150 meters today, and I looked at him, and I don't know how I knew, but I just realized something in me said he's not that comfortable. You're going to have to keep your distance from him. He'll either run away or he'll come towards us, or obviously neither of which we want. He's watching carefully. He's pretending to sort of feed a bit. Jessica, you say a lot of the bulls at the moment seem to be indicating a sort of higher irritation level. And then I think you said, wasn't the mating season last month? Is that what you said? Oh, mating season is in high. Sorry, I'm not following it. Let's have it once more. Sorry. Assuming mating season is what? Oh, no, I think I'm getting it. You're saying, is it because it's mating season? Yes, it is. It's not mating season, but there certainly seems to be some kind of synchronization in the must period that these elephant bulls are experiencing. So yes, I would say it has got exactly to do with that. Many of the bigger bulls that I've been seeing are in must at the moment. Now let's pretend that they were to all mate now. It is January. At least it's March. It's not January anymore, is it? 22 months from now would put us in January. In 2 years' time, or not 2 years' time, 2019, be an excellent time for a calf to be born to elephants. Lots of grass, rainy season. So maybe there is some kind of seasonality. There's not supposed to be strict seasonality in the way that elephants breed. And so, yeah, maybe it's just like a peak. All right, let's move on. River, you say, have I ever measured an elephant's ear to see how big it is? I haven't, River, but you know many people have. And it's about 1.2 meters long. And 1.2 meters in feet is 3'3", say about 1.2 meters, 20 centimeters is going to be another 8 inches or so. It's about 3'10". About 3 feet and 10 inches long. It's about the same again wide. So it's a big circular thing, about 1.2 meters. And that's done. I mean, you know, lots of elephants, of course, have work done on them. Many elephants die, of course, every so often because there's so many of them. And so they all get measured. And there's lots of data on that sort of stuff. Very important part of the body. They have to have big ears to try and stay cool. Now we're going to head to the east and on the boundary with the property north of Cheetah Plains, which is called Nkoro. And that will hopefully give us view, with any luck, of 2 cheetah. Maybe they will be next to the water, spectacularly lying. Maybe, of course, they will be lying in the grass, in which case all we will see is the waving stalks. Lots of birds around. I'm also still hoping desperately to see Brent's red-collared widow. That would be very special. The monotonous larks, of course, in evidence. You see it land there. Ah, yes, now swearing at us as it flies away. Typical. Let's keep going. Right, I don't know what Taylor's going to be doing now after she's already had the massive success of finding Tingana, but I'm going to let her tell you.
Right. A little bit sad, a little bit frustrating, of course. This is how the game goes, is sometimes you get it right and sometimes you don't. But at least well done to Herbie, of course. He's the one to really thank on leading us the correct way. Now, we didn't get too close to him. It's not like Karula when we often almost have to step on top of her before she reveals herself. He was sleeping underneath a big log. And now that we're out of there, I think we can chat about what exactly happened. And as we came around the corner, the vegetation is exceptionally thick, as you've seen with Tristan as he's been off-roading in there. It's almost impossible. You would have seen the little roads that we were having to navigate too. And we were so close. Maybe about 40 meters away. And he spotted us, but he was in a deep sleep, so I think he got a bit of a fright himself as to what was going on, because we were trying to be as quiet as possible in there because it is so thick. If you sneak up and you come across a buffalo or something along those lines, you really don't want to know them to know that you were, of course, there. So we're going to move out of the area now. But because he ran, like we're just chatting now, it's unfortunate that he is so skittish on foot. Like I was saying, animals are different. Look at the zebra, for example. Maybe seen a human a couple of times, and one day we decided to do an approach and they didn't move. Amazing, they're comfortable with us. Karula and the cubs, completely relaxed around people. Tingana, not so much. And I don't think I've ever had a very relaxed experience with any male leopards on foot. It always seemed to be the girls that seem to be a little bit more complacent, and I'm not sure why that is. So we'll move out of here, because the last thing that we want to do, we don't know where he's gone now, is, like I said, corner him. You don't want to have people on foot and a vehicle in that sighting, especially if we happen to be pushing him and we don't know towards Tristan, or Tristan doing the same thing towards us. That's when you can find yourself in tricky situations. So I'm sure Tristan's going to give it a bash. He's going up and down around here. Hopefully he'll be lucky. Now, Maureen from Newcastle, you're wondering what are the top 5 largest cats. Well, if you're talking about Africa, I suppose lions are number 1, and then leopards, then cheetah, then I would say a serval is probably next in terms of height, then a caracal. I would say that those 3 will probably be the top 5 big cats in South Africa, though a serval and a caracal are not considered big cats at all. They are part of a different family, and not the Panthera family, the Felidae family. Just listening. See, there's a lot of commotion going on behind me. It's a bit too far away for you to hear birds chirping, squirrels shouting. But it could also be because we were walking in that area too. Something like that could have definitely stirred up the wilderness. That's why we'll move out, let everything settle down, and then take it from there. It's so exciting walking on foot. It's unbelievable. The adrenaline rush that you get is amazing. Eggsy, how do you feel? Was your heart pounding? Yeah. So Eggsy's never... Have you walked any big animals on foot yet? None. So Eggsy hasn't even walked an elephant, a rhinoceros, a buffalo. Once. Okay, so rhinoceros he's done. And no lion, no leopard. So something like that, to go in to a very thick area where you're struggling to see even a couple of meters in front of you, which is something, again, you'd never do with geese. That's a little bit dangerous to go into a thick spot like that. And so his heart must have been going, and he's trying to film and everything. So well done on not panicking, Eggsy. Very exciting. And hopefully we'll get you a sighting one day with Karula, because that is the most amazing leopard to approach on foot, of course. Right. Whew! The adrenaline is pumping at the moment. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to go towards Weaver's Nest and have a little look around there and see what else we can find. I actually want to have a look for that purple nut sedge that we briefly looked at this morning and see if we can dig out a tuber. So I'm going to need to go and look for one of those. I'm going to send you across to James now for an update.
All I heard there was Taylor's going to look for the purple nut cage. Did you hear that, David? The purple nut cage. I wonder what a purple nut cage is. Right, now, it was here and hereabouts that the cheetah were seen. I see a vehicle on coral driving away at high speed, indicating to me that... Oh, purple nut sedge. Ah, I didn't even know what that is. Taylor's kindly going to bring some back. Right, apparently they were coming south into this area here. So what I think we'll do is drive slowly from shade piece to shade piece. That car has just come out of this area. It may have been trespassing, of course. So a cheetah, obviously, on a hot day like this is not going to move a great deal. So we will have a look in the shade, and we will go and look next to the water over there, and hope that somewhere in amongst this very long grass we're able to spot spots and golden pelage of Achionyx ubatus. I see many off-road driving tracks here, but not a whisper of the cheetah. There. No, that's a pig. I can see pigs, everybody, making their way to the water. Feline, you'd like to see a grey lory, would you? Well, I thought I'd seen one. That's a dove. Feline, I will try desperately to find you, well, not so desperately, but I'll try hard to find you a grey go-away bird. They are around here. I think let's just keep moving slowly. And then we'll go to the water, have a look at the piggies there. Watch on top of the termite mounds in every little piece of shade. There should be... I'm just listening here, sorry, to the radio. Let me just try and get an update. Stations, anyone try and relocate south of Kalkul of those two males? Affirmative, did you relocate? They're on Cheetah Plains open. Copy, confirm the open area just south of Kalkul. Yeah, I'm on Cheetah Plains. I'm just not sure which Cheetah Plains open area. Confirm the one north of the Mala Mala boundary. Ah, okay, so we need to move further. We need to move quickly. Copy, thank you very much. I think they're going to cross into Mala Mala, which is not far from here. Unfortunately, the radios are not particularly effective in this part of the world. Hold on, everybody. There's a grey lory. There it goes. You get it, Dave? Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. We'll come back for try and find it later. I'd really like to see these cheetahs. I'm not sure if there's anybody in the actual sighting, though. There might be. Woo! Millipede nearly hit him. Hello, pigs. You guys are quite lucky. Cheetah just down here. Now, I think we're probably about 2 minutes away from the cheetah, but I'm not actually sure. Because I can't get hold of anybody on the radio. We're going to go as quickly as we can. So while we race here, let's head to Tristan. He's also on the trail of a spotted cat.
Well, our tracking of Tingana has failed. We've not found any sign of him. It is so thick inside there. We tried our hardest to go round and round and round in circles, checking all the little thickets that he might be hiding in, but alas, we've not managed to come up with anything. It is very, 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 very difficult to find anything inside there. So now all I'm doing is going around in a loop again just to see maybe if he's popped out somewhere where I can actually see a footprint, or if he's maybe walking on the road again. I was ever hopeful that he could potentially have gone to our big jackalberry and maybe lay there, but alas, no sign at this stage. What we'll probably do is, I mean, there's not much more I can do than what we've done already in terms of going off-road and checking around here. Like I say, once he's seen somebody on foot and he's gotten up and moved very quickly away, it means that he's going to be a little bit wary of what's going on around him. So in all likelihood, he's going to find a very, very thick, dense area and he's going to lie down, and that's where he's going to wait, and he's going to wait for all the noise and all the chaos to kind of go away, and then potentially he's either going to get up and start walking and carry on with his territorial patrol, or he'll find a new place to go and rest that he feels like will be a lot safer and a lot more quiet than what he currently was in or what we had him in. So we'll just have to see. I think the best plan is to carry on with our drive, go see what else we can find, and go and enjoy the beauty of the afternoon, and then come back here a little bit later with a spotlight and just drive around and just check if he hasn't come out onto the roads. I'm pretty sure once he starts to wake up that his next approach will be onto a road, and then he's going to start moving. And it's going to be a lot easier for us to find him and a lot less invasive on his well-being for us to do it that way than to go barging through thickets like this and crashing over trees. Also, we don't want to destroy Rusty in the process, so far better to actually just give it a break for a little bit and come back a little bit later. That's what I think we shall do. But it's amazing, had we had 100 meters more to go with the vehicle, we would have found him with the car. Where Taylor found him, they showed me the spot. It literally was 100 meters from where Viam and I turned around, and like I say, we just couldn't get a car any further than than where we were. And so it just shows you, sometimes you miss it by very, very close margins, and it goes that way. At least Taylor found him and you got a brief glimpse of him, and like I say, hopefully this evening he'll come out and we'll be rewarded for our patience. It's been a frustrating 2 days with leopards for Viam and I. Right, now I may have been struggling to find spotted cats, but it seems like the legendary Mr. Hendry has come up with the goods once again and has got the 2 cheetahs on Cheetah Plains.
There we are, everybody. Spotted kitty in the grass. 2 of them, the Cheetah brothers of Cheetah Plains and surrounds. Now, they're not far from the eastern and southern boundaries, so I'm not sure how long we're going to have them for, but we'll stay with them for as long as we can. God, that is wonderful. Isn't that a lovely shot of them standing there in the grass? Marvellous stuff. Let's keep going. I'm going to try and get around the front of them. Just is a car in front of us, so I don't want to create any consternation there. One doesn't want to create too much consternation ever, really. Inkomo. Van'wanyani va ta fika. Okay. Now, Jason, you're wondering how many of these spotted magnificences live in the Djuma area. Jason, not many. They are not common, and that's because areas like we're in now, which are, well, clear of too many trees, you can see are not common. We don't often have areas like this. Often, more often than not, it's woodland, and cheetahs need areas like the one we're sitting in now. They cannot survive very effectively in woodland because they cannot hunt very effectively in woodland. He's a very fine fellow. Did you see where his brother went, Dave? Oh, there he is. Yes, quite. Oh, and the smell coming off this grass. Imagine the best kind of cut grass smell you've ever smelt in your life. Multiply that by 10 and you get something close to how wonderful this really, I mean, it's a fresh, I hesitate to use the word verdant again because I use it all the time, but it really does smell gorgeous. And I know that many of you are excited to see the brothers together because we know that they split up, or they were split up. We don't really know why, quite possibly because of lions, I think it was, that chased them. But they've certainly managed to find each other now, and they've disappeared. How many times have we driven straight past them, one has to ask? They've gone. Tell me when you've got a shot, Dave. You got him. Now, I imagine they quite like that because it means that no lion can spot them either. As difficult as it is for us, so it is for anything that might harm them. Marvelous stuff. Trevor, I'm going to say no, but I'm not sure. You say, do they look like they've eaten, that they've eaten recently? I'm not sure. I would say no. I mean, I don't think they're starving to death, but I don't know when the last time they ate was. RJ Blade, you say, what purpose do the tear marks on the face serve? RJ Blade, I think that will be debated for about as long as the debate over why zebra have stripes occurs. No one really knows why it is that they have got tear stripes. The sort of general consensus at the moment is that rather like a football player who paints darkness under his eyes when he's playing under floodlights, some cricket players do it as well, it's supposed to absorb light, and so there's less reflection into the eyes. And because they hunt in the day rather than at night, they don't have the white fringes around the eyes that, for example, the leopards and lions do. I'll just keep an eye on them. Now, poor old Roy is trying to get a view for his guests, but you know, I mean, it's not easy. They don't have the advantage of the camera, and if you look at that picture there, there's the other chap stuck his head up. This is wonderful. And the shadows are lengthening, as you can see. Oh, this is wonderful stuff. We might just try a little sneak forward. Shall we try that, David? We don't want to get our shadow on him because that'll take away the golden light. How's that, David? Pretty hopeless. That might be all we get. Now, of course, we are to get out of the car, then we'd have a wonderful view, briefly. Now, there have been two incidents of late where I've heard of cheetah, one fatal and one not fatal, attacking human beings. And I'd never heard of it before, because they're not animals that you would normally fear, and certainly when you see them on foot, their normal reaction is to just run away. And those two incidents were combined with a story from Herbert, where he says he was tracking a cheetah and he was charged by it. And it disappeared. I mean, it gave him a rev and then it ran away. But the point is that it chased him, or did give him a rev. And that's just not what we expect from cheetahs. And so they're not to be underestimated. Beautiful view of the spots there. And if you're ever wondering what the difference between... Oh, look at that. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? If you're wondering, what was I saying? What was I waffling about? Oh, Herbert. And that sort of thing. We're often we don't think about them as being as we think of, because they're so low down in the predator hierarchy, we think of them being fairly sort of insignificant almost, and tame. They're not. These are wild animals, wild cats. Now we've got a question about why they're always on cheetah plains. Well, the answer is because it's open. It has these open areas. You'll never find them around the lodge. You'll never find them in those woodlands where we often see elephants and often see nkanyeni and sometimes guchava. But almost always they are found here in the open areas. And what they do is they move between the open area here down into Mala Mala. They come up through here. They go up through Torchwood and Nkoro, which is not far from here. There's some clearings there. Then they go all the way up into parts of Buffelshoek, where there are different kinds of clearings. They're gabbro clearings, and as opposed to these sodic clearings. And they hunt between those areas, and then they come wandering down, and their movements are actually relatively predictable. It's just very nice to have them at all, you know. Seldom do we have cheetah, and that's because of the habitat, as I've said. They're just wonderful things. Just question again, please. Is it possible that one of these... Yes, Tweety Tweet? Oh, right. Yes, Tweety Tweet, that is a very, very fair assumption. You say, is it possible that one of these two is the father of one of the, or of the cubs that was seen recently on Buffelshoek? Tweety Tweet, I'd say it's more than likely. There are not a lot of cheetah around here. We know that, and so it's highly likely that one of them, one of these chaps, is the father. And the females also, I mean, they're not common around here, so it really is not inconceivable that one of them is the father. Now, for those of you who don't know, there was a female and 4 cubs found on Buffelshoek recently. I'm just going to quickly ask how many people are coming to the sighting, because my radio is not working very well. Vangaki vata figara. Na menta famba. Ya uim. Loko va figa nta famba. All right. Okay. I'm just having a discussion there about whether we can stay or not. I don't know what they're doing there. Maybe smelling... Can't be another female, surely. Oh, that's beautiful. That's stunning. That really is gorgeous. Maybe there's water there. You see them drinking maybe water? There's definitely a hole. This is just beautiful. Right, we're going to turn around now because they're going to start moving. Now, Susan, all the way from Germany, you're wondering how old they are. And Susan, I must confess to you that I've got absolutely no idea. Potential lifespan 12 to 13 years. And I don't think they look old to me. They look fairly well muscled, not in any kind of distress or difficulty. So I'm going to say in their prime, between 4 and 5, maybe 6. Could be up to 8 though, you know. I wouldn't say they're older than 8, but I might be wrong. You know, I've spent so little time around cheetah in the same way that you've spent relatively little time around cheetah because, well, you watch these safaris over here and we'd see leopard far more frequently than we do cheetah. I couldn't tell you exactly how old they are, And, you know, where I look at a leopard and give you a vague guess as to its age, the cheetah much more difficult. And Tristan, apparently, who's got more experience in this area, says that he reckons they're 10 or 12. I would have thought 12 was quite old for them. So we'll call it an even 10, shall we? Yeah, come to a slightly more open area here. These chaps are going to disappear. Oh, monotonous lark in the way. Yeah, I think they're going to cross over the boundary, I'm afraid. I'm going to try and get in front of them so we can get a slightly better view. But the boundary is now coming up, unfortunately, quite quickly. And Lissa, you say, oh, they are just gorgeous. They are very gorgeous, if you can be very gorgeous. And that's what these chaps are. Isn't that wonderful? And Eve, you say, is there a limit to cars on the sighting? Eve, absolutely there's a limit to the cars on the sighting. There are only 3 allowed. But we seem to be in a position where we're allowed to stay. So that's very exciting. I don't think we have to move, which is great news. Because no one else is here. And these chaps are about to, unfortunately, cross the boundary, so some people are going to miss out on what we have been thoroughly enjoying. Ooh, there'll be a bit of a territorial marking there. That's what's going on there. Sniffing, just to tell. Is my scent correctly placed here? Yes, apparently it is. And whenever I've watched these chaps, one of them does a lot more marking than the other. I'm not sure why that should be the case. Ooh, come on, have a lie down there. It's a nice little open patch. Rand, it is yes and no, you say. Is it true that they don't have retractable claws like other cats? Rand, no cats actually have retractable claws. They've got, I'm being pedantic here, but they've got what we call protractable claws. The resting position is the claws actually in. So that's the resting position, but they can push them out. Now the cheetah has got a semi-protractable claw, which means it's halfway out at rest. It can push them all the way out, but in resting position, so you can imagine when they're running, they don't want to expend energy pushing the claws out. So when they're running, they get pushed, well, probably not when they're running. When they're running, they're halfway out, and that gives them an extra spiky grip. But they don't use them for killing in anything like the same way that like a cheetah or a lion will. Ayaw min dyan ko lang. Aha. Some cloth. Kui. Swam cloth. Oh. He's just telling me a joke there. And Shangan saying, can you see how upset they are? They're crying. Look at their tear marks. And Tony, you wondering what language I'm speaking? It's a bad Shangan, I'm afraid. I'd love it to be much better than it is. Beautiful. Lady Starfire, you say, have I ever seen a cheetah at full stretch, running at full stretch? And the answer is, yes, I have, but not for an extended period. So I've seen a cheetah running and then sort of disappearing into the bushes. I haven't seen those classic sort of shots that you get largely of East Africa, of course, when they are herring across the plains and the cameraman's managed to get them in full flight for a full chase. I haven't managed to see that yet. But these clearings, of course, would be the ideal place to do that. Your two-vehicle sighting. Your two-vehicle sighting. Oh. I'm loving the farm. Okay, that's Oh, and that's one. Okay. Yeah, he's just saying why we can stay, because they keep moving out to making space for each other, but it's because they're only allowed one from their property at a time. So we're allowed to stay. Marvellous. Jenny, your answer is most easily answered by discussing the territoriality. You say, do cheetah fight when they meet up? No, they don't, normally, because they are not territorial, well, not strictly territorial. They'll avoid conflict. But they do fight from time to time, and I've certainly heard reports of females, especially with youngsters, being attacked by males. These guys have not eaten. They are very, very skinny. And if we're trying to assess their ages, if we look at the one that's in front there, Dave, you can see very moth-eaten ears. So maybe they're about 10. I can't believe that they're older than 10, though. They might be. I wonder if anybody's known them since they were cubs. I'm not sure when the first time they were seen on Safari Live was, but of course we've only had cheetah plains for just over a year. The ears flicking there, much sleeping to be had. Well, this is brilliant. We're not going anywhere at all. And just stay right here until they cross the boundary, because they will almost certainly do that. They're a little bit itchy. They're probably feeling a little bit like Taylor. They've been walking through this long grass. I bet she wants to sort of have a roll around in a dusty area and stay itch-free. I'm just picturing Taylor do that now, actually. It's quite amusing. And all around the monotonous lark's call. Light starts to soften, the shadows lengthen as we head towards another gorgeous low-felt African evening. Marvellous. What else can we... Let's just try and maybe move slightly round the other side there. And while we do that, let's head across to Tristan. Apparently he has something that cheetahs like to eat.
Well, yes, James, these would be high up on a cheetah's menu in the Sabi Sands. This will be one of the animals that they will go after first, especially those two brothers. This is something that those two together will try and target, because the two of them are going to eat quite a bit as a group. So an impala is the perfect size, particularly these impala rams. I've seen them chase these guys quite often and eat quite a few impala rams. So this is indeed one of their prey items. So we came down to Twin Dams as part of our World Water Day, as well as to check for any signs of the royals, to see if maybe Karuna and the cubs had somehow popped up this way. But alas, there has been no sign of them. Apparently the two cubs were seen in Little Gowrie, which is just to the south of us, so they are in that side and apparently nowhere near the boundary at this stage, which is not ideal news. It's not exactly what we wanted to hear, but they said they haven't seen any sign of Karula for the last 2 days, so I don't know where Karula is at the moment. Maybe she'll miraculously pop out somewhere on our side and we'll get a really good sighting of her. It would be great if she was on the side, because then potentially she could be hunting and go back south and then bring the cubs back this way, because the cubs are not going to move too much without Karula's initiation, or initiating the movement herself. But Twin Dams is very quiet otherwise. It's just the impalas that are frolicking about. So I think what we're going to do is, in more than likely, start trying to head back towards where Tingana was. What do you think, Vim? Good idea? I think so. I think we're going to try and start heading back towards where Tingana was and see if maybe he's now woken up. It's that time of the day where he should start getting moving. So we did a big loop around just to see if there was anything going on. I was looking for any signs of elephant tracks as well, going to any of the water holes. So we checked around Gwarrie Pan, Buffelshoek Dam, and there was very little out that way, just the 3 hippos that we saw earlier at Buffelshoek Dam, and that's about it. So I think it's about that time that we start heading back into that area for Tingana, and like I say, hopefully he's up and moving and he's going to be out in the open and we're going to be able to see him easily. It should also help when we have a spotlight. So spotlight will pick up his eye shine, so even if the bush is very thick and he's sitting somewhere where I can't see, normally with the shine of the light I'll pick up his eyes. Now what have we got here? Yeah, you see in the dead tree there? Looks like we've got an Egyptian goose on a nest, and then above it looks like a Wahlberg's eagle. Well, no, it's both Wahlberg's eagle. Now, isn't this interesting? It looks like they are busy constructing a nest, which would be crazy because this is right at the end. Oh, it's got some carcass there. I can't see exactly what it is, actually. So they're not using that nest at all. They're busy feeding with something. And you can see that Wahlberg's eagle is a very pale, whitey cream color, which is very different to the Wahlberg's eagle at the top of the tree, which is very, very brown. Now, even though those two look completely different, they are exactly the same species, and these two will be, more than likely be a pair together. So it does happen that they pair together even though they are different colors. You won't find a situation where a pale form will discriminate and only go on to another pale form and mate with that. So they'll actually form a breeding pair even though they are different colors. But I don't know what it's got there. Whatever it is quite large. Now, Wahlberg's eagles generally are birds that hunt other birds. They go after things like red-billed quellias and sparrows and the like. So that is a really large meal. And I just see this nest and I wonder if maybe an Egyptian goose didn't have chicks in that nest and these two maybe have come and stolen it, or they've managed to find themselves something like a scrub hare that they've been able to take up there. It's impossible to tell what it was. When it picked it up, it looked like just bones that had been fairly stripped. So whatever it was, it does have quite a big skeletal mass. So I would imagine small mammal or large bird is what that is. But isn't that amazing? These pale form Wahlbergs are absolutely beautiful. They've got a very, very cool color. Very nice, Vim. Well, we didn't manage to find the spotted predator, but at least we got a bird of prey eating. That's quite nice. I'm going to take the road because our road actually goes a little bit closer. Maybe we'll get lucky and it'll pick it up and see what it actually is. Now, while we try reposition and actually see what we've got here and what these Wahlbergs are eating, let's go across to Miss McCurdy and see what other adventures she's gotten up to since she found Tingana on foot.
Well, it's been very exciting. We just had a buffalo at very close quarters. It was wallowing in a pan, but the grass was so long we just saw the horns sticking out. We were maybe about 30 meters away, so we very, very quickly crept out backwards and back into the drainage system and out of harm's way before it realized that we were there. We couldn't unfortunately really wait around because, as you know, a herd of buffalo, very intimidating, but at least they're not as aggressive as one buffalo on itself. Remember, living in a herd, having lots of eyes and ears, you feel a little bit safer than when you are on your own. But I have found a couple of other things that I wanted to show you. So here we go. Here we get the two most common sedge species. We've got the white one is the white button sedge, and then on the left we've got the purple nut sedge. Then we've got papyrus, Then we've got a piece of grass. Now, of course, you all know my rhyme very well. Sedges have edges, rushes are round, the papyrus. Grasses have nodes all the way down. So I thought that we might as well, seeing as we're in this drainage line and we've managed to find them all, have a look at the differences. I'm going to put those two down for now, and we're going to look at the sedges. Sedges are really easy to identify. Firstly, if you stare at them, let me just try and, let's bring one of these out and just flatten the rest of them. Straight away, you can see they've almost, this one is now opened. Remember, the white button sedge is normally tightly together, but it's flowering at the moment. You might actually be able to see tiny little yellow flowers. Can you see that? Just listening again. Yes, baboons. Yeah, just sorry, I heard a noise. I was looking at Herbie to confirm it was baboons that I was hearing. And then, of course, they're very typical. This one is a little bit different. It doesn't bunch up like the white button sedge. It's constantly open, as you can see, the inflorescence of a flower. But then, of course, the stem is angular. Now, this is a very, very, very young purple nut sedge. I actually tried to dig it out of the ground, but the ground was so hard as well. I didn't quite get the tuber. I couldn't get through even with my piece of dead knobthorn that I managed to use as a stick. I just got this these little wispy roots, but essentially out of here is there normally is one big tuber, because as this plant grows and it gets quite tall, sort of get to about that big, then you'll get a tuber that can be up to 20 centimeters in length. And we'll quickly just go on about what we were chatting about this morning. So initially I said that the big tuber that they've got is fantastic. It's high in starch and carbohydrates, which is a really good sustenance for many different people. Central Australia, the Aborigines used to use it as a staple diet, as well as African countries, many different African countries. And then the sort of further north you go, as you start to head towards Egypt and places like that, this plant becomes very, very special for the Egyptians, and what they would use it. And like the sedge, they have a similar property. And obviously in dry areas, it's like the bushmen having to store water is probably one of the most crucial things out there, though. Of course, the Nile River runs through Egypt, and so they do have a nice water source, but sometimes it's easier just to store it. So both of these sedges have got antibacterial properties, and both of them are used, but particularly the purple nut sedge, which is found all over Africa, and particularly used by the Egyptians to keep their water clean. So they would store it most likely in clay pots, and then they will actually take the roots off. They would just, of course, cut this part, the stems and the head of the plant, and then chuck it in the water and then leave it like that, and that was supposed to keep it sterile. And I said that that's what they do with the white button sedge. The bushmen use that and they stuff their ostrich eggs. Another thing is that there's a incredible aroma that comes off of this plant. Now, for the life of me, I can't remember which part of the plant that they use, but I'm just smelling the plant now. Let me break it up a bit. No, it's not the stems. So it must be, they must do something with the roots, maybe the tuber, maybe the inflorescence, I'm not sure. But the Egyptians actually used to make a perfume out of it, and they used to use it to spice their food as well. So not only is this one of the most invasive plants well, the most annoying weed, I suppose, in the world. Like I said, it invades over 90 different countries, but it is indigenous to Africa as a whole. But it is also very, very, of course, useful. Now, again, I've been picking my brain as we've been walking around. The Australians also used this. It was many, many years ago. They actually used a specific ingredient, and I have a feeling it's the same part of the plant that they were using to perfume themselves in wine. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a Shiraz that they used it in, but I can't remember the life of me what this name is, but I've got it written in my notebook, so I shall learn it tomorrow and for tomorrow's sunrise safari, and then I'll tell you about it. But I just think that that's an incredible, something that is such an annoyance to people and ruins crops and well, just causes a lot of problem, can also be so helpful. So there we go, sedges, which I think is really, really handy. And as you can see, it's really hot out here. I'm sweating quite a bit. Right, now Lara Moore, you're wondering what the tuber tastes like, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to dig it up. I was hoping to find a couple of bigger ones, and we're actually walking in this drainage system at the moment because this is a good area to find them. Also, the soil is nice and soft, so we'd easily be able to dig down and pull the whole plant out. But sadly, I'm not having too much luck this afternoon. We're walking in a different area as to where I found it on drive this morning, but we'll go back there at some point. They're not going to run away. So Lara, they say that it tastes very, very bitter. That's what all the books say and everything says about it, and that's why I wanted to try it for myself. But it is edible, and it's very, very good. It contains a lot of moisture in it, and like I said, a good carbohydrate to have and to know about it. But eventually we'll get it right. We'll eventually dig an entire one out, and we'll have a taste of this beautiful tuber. But isn't that cool? Something different, something new, but I'm going to try and keep it a little bit intact because I want to show James's particular sedge. And it's just amazing as we walk around our chairs. We all got different eyes and we always pick up different things. And this thing particularly caught my eye. I remember reading about it many, many, many years ago, but I'd never actually seen it. And then while out on bushwalk with Herbie, we were walking through here actually, and this is where I found my first one. And it looked exactly like a sedge. I picked it up, I felt the angular, of course, shape of the stem, and I went, okay, well, it looks very much like a stem with these little leaves coming off the inflorescence. And I thought, well, it must be that. And then I pulled out the interweb just to quickly have a look at a picture of one, just to confirm it, and it was indeed. So that was quite cool that I managed to find it out here on Djuma Game Reserve. And Mary, you said that this is very interesting. It is indeed, and I can't believe, I'm so sorry that I've completely forgotten about the wine, because I found that particularly interesting. But we'll get back at that. We'll just keep this going for a while. Now, Project Alpha, thank you. You're saying that I was correct about the Shiraz. That was the varietal of wine that they were using to spice this, but we'll go into a bit more information. I'll rather go and read that passage again that I'd taken. I can't even remember where I found that note. This note, it was in a notebook from about 4 years ago, and so I've got to go back a bit and actually do a little bit more research on it. And maybe, because that was such a long time ago, perhaps there's actually more studies that have been done on this plant, and maybe there's a couple of other things. So I'll do a bit more research tonight and see what else I can dig up about this plant, but I think it's particularly interesting, like I say, that something can be such a nuisance to people, but also such a blessing at the same time. And then finally, we've got our sedges, we've got our grasses, and we've got our rush all in one. I think this is the first time I've ever had my little poem that I always talk about in the same bunch. And well, you could probably use it as a bouquet as well to decorate your table. So lots of useful things out here. We need to move out of this drainage line now. It's getting a bit dark, so we need to chase the sunset and head west. But I'm going to send you across to Tristan while we do a little bit of a march.
Well, I think Taylor's going to have to march quite quickly because that sun is already set off in the western horizon. So I think she's going to have to walk quite fast from where she is. I drove past her tracks just now, so I know she's quite far south of where we are. And there's quite a little walk back to the camp. So she's going to have to move quite quickly. And I heard her talking about the fact that the Australians use sedge to make wine. I think Australians are much like us in that they will utilize anything to make some sort of alcohol. So you can see in the road we've got some crested franklins. Now I'm hoping that these guys will be our helping hand in finding Tingana. So we're back into that area now and we're looking around, and I'm on Hyena Road, which is on the eastern side of where Tingana was seen, and I'm hoping that he walks somewhere where these birds are, because they will make an absolute racket. They'll explode off the ground and onto a tree area, and they'll start calling, and that will give us an idea that he's moving around. But you can see the little chicks running in amongst the adults there. So quite a large grouping of crested franklins, and they seem to be chasing one another. And look at them just waddling down the road. Now, I'm unfortunately going to upset their afternoon marathon or jog on the road, and we're going to go through because I want to try and get round to back to where we saw Tingana, or Taylor had Tingana, before it gets too dark. We want to be able to have a little bit of light to see. So it will be good if they do pop out some more, if he does pop out. Like I say, it's also good just to stop every now and then and just listen, because when leopards move around, they will disturb a multitude of different animals. So you'll find that birds will be disturbed, like I was saying with these crested franklins. They'll be disturbed. There'll be possibly some sort of prey animal, so you might hear the bark of a kudu or the snort of an impala. And so sometimes just turning off your engine and sitting for a little bit can allow you to actually locate on these predators and hear where they're moving around. Now, of course, if he is lying flat, then it's going to be very difficult for anything to see him, and then he'll find that they'll be very quiet. But like I was talking about earlier, I reckon he's going to be up and moving now. It's gotten quite cool. The sun is setting, it's getting dark and gloomy, and it's now the perfect time for a leopard to start waking up and start moving for the afternoon. So that's what we're hedging our bets on, and I reckon it's time. VM and I caught a break, and a leopard arrived on the scene for us. VM was reminding me that out of everyone in the crew at the moment, I think he and I are the ones that are so probably the most desperate to see a leopard. Both of us are spotted cat fans, so for us going a day or two without leopard is start to get a bit of withdrawal symptoms, and so we really need to fix it and break our little drought that we've had. And it's going to be one of those situations. It happens like this. Sometimes you go through these droughts where you don't see any leopards for a few days, and you get all down about it, and you think to yourself, what is wrong? Why can't I find them? And then the floodgates open, you'll randomly bump a leopard, and then from then on, wherever you go, there'll be a leopard everywhere. So it happens this way, and you've just got to ride out the bad and then enjoy the good times when they do come. Careful your head here, VM. There's a nasty buffalo thorn there. But other than that, it's been quite a quiet afternoon for the driving that we've done. We actually haven't seen very much at all. We haven't seen many signs of other animals. I haven't seen any waterbuck tracks or giraffe tracks or even zebra tracks. VM and I were saying that we had zebra everywhere a few days ago, and now all of a sudden there seems to be quite quiet. Other than the McCurdy-Hurdy that's on quarantine, there's not that many zebra around. It's probably because the grass is getting so long in places that they really are in danger walking around there. If there is lions anywhere near, and a zebra walks through grass like this, they're never going to see a lion, and a lion will be able to hunt them quite effectively. So I think they're trying to stick to more open areas, and now with that area on the edge of Chitwa airstrip, which is south of Djuma, that they've just mowed just to kind of keep it clear for the runway, you're going to find a lot of zebra are going to make their way there because of that shorter, fresher grass that's around. So that will have pulled a few herds as well. Okay, you're wondering if the Safari Live team can cross boundaries. Sorry, Rusty's not first. We can in certain areas. So we have Djuma, which is our main area, which is where we're based. So we have basically a block that is Djuma. Then to our western side, we've got Arathusa that fits in there. And then to the south, we've got Chitwa and Cheetah Plains, which is where James is at the moment. So those are all boundaries, but we're able to cross in between all of those. And slowly but surely, we are going to try and find ways to try and expand our traversing and have more areas so that we can access more properties and have a lot more availability in when it comes to finding of animals. Now, I reverse a little bit just because of this beautiful coloration on the western horizon. So now that the sun's gone down, there's this beautiful blues and pinks that are coming off, and you can see almost fingers of light and mirror effect of the sun on the eastern side. So you can see there's a little drongo that's busy hawking. This little drongo is now going up into the air and grabbing little insects, and that's because now at this time of the night there's a few insects that will be hatching. So you'll find the mosquitoes are going to start coming out. There might be a few little mayflies that will be hatching out of the watery areas, and that open little branch is the perfect place for these drongos to hawk from. So they can just fly up, grab an insect, and then back, and then spy, grab. Oh, and look at that camera work from VM. Very well done there, VM. That was excellent. Well done. So you can see a perfect place, and this will be a pair together that's moving around, and off they go. That was very, very nice indeed. Well done, VM. We're going to try and see if we can carry on and find any sign of Tingana. It's now getting quite dark, so I think the lights will start coming into handy now, and the spotlight might be able to get a little bit of eye shine from him and be able to then see him in these thickets if he is lying down still. Right, so we're going to go through a bit of a bad section now with signal-wise on Rusty. So we're going to go across to James, who I think is still with those cheetah, and I'm very jealous. He seems to have had a beautiful afternoon with them in the Golden Light, so let's see what they're up to and whether they've woken up or not.
Here we have the cheetah, everybody. We haven't moved from them, but I'm afraid they've moved from us. They're now in northern Malamala, where we are not allowed to go on account of the fact that, well, you know, people are just so, well, they're just quite picky about who drives where and how and why. Unfortunately, we've got just one more view of them. We were just moving the camera there so that the vehicle behind us could go away. That wasn't meant to be a joke, David. David's found many things very funny today. Now we are going to have a school drive joining us at 6:15. Nighttime African safari school drive. Hope they enjoy spotlights. And I guarantee you that cheetah will lie down as they go live, and we'll have a monotonous lark maybe, and this quarry bush next to me to show them. But with any luck, the cheetah will hang around for just 5 more minutes so we can show them at least a glimpse of this beautiful cat. Wow, we've been privileged to see them today. It's been really special. Christopher, we think that you want to know if they can see in colour. We think, Christopher, that they largely see in black and white. So how do we know that, you might ask? Well, what you do is you hold up a number in front of them. You know those coloured, you know the colourblind test, you know the ones? You know the green, and then they've got red in the middle, I think. You hold that in front of the cheetah and you say, can you see the number? And the cheetah then says, I can't see the number. And from that you can deduce that it is colourblind. I'm sorry, Christopher, I'm talking rubbish. The way you know that is from their eyes, and it's a dissection of the eye, basically. And in your eye, yours too, you've got 2 kinds of cells, one called rods and one called cones. Cones, it's easy to remember this because cone begins with C, as does colour. Cones pick up colour, and rods pick up light and dark. And we have got a lot more cones than we do rods, so we see very well in colour, not so well at night. And a cat like this will see, has far more rods than it does cones, so it doesn't see so well in colour. But what that does mean is that it has a much better perception of contrast, and probably a greater sense of depth of perception, and it also, which means that when it is on the hunt, it's able to pick things up that are well camouflaged, but at the same time, I told you it would do that. Now we have one quarry bush to show the kids, and at the same time, it means that it can see better at night. Now, why does a cheetah, which hunts largely during the day, need to see at night? Well, it's because it needs to defend itself. Its greatest threat is from hyenas and lions and even leopards. And so it needs to be able to see at night in order to defend itself, much in the same way that something like an impala also sees rather well at night, better than we do, probably not quite as well as a lion does. This is absolutely spectacular timing from these chaps. Thank you very much. I don't actually believe what I'm seeing. All they had to do was hang around for another 3 minutes. And now look at them. Wassailing off into Malamala, looking for things to eat. I think also you might find that cheetah do a little bit more hunting around this time of the day than we think they do. You know, normally we'd expect them to be going to ground round about now to avoid the presence or avoid the chance of coming across a lion or a leopard or something like that, or a hyena, even worse for them. And I think you'll find that they probably do just a little bit more hunting until it's completely dark, because this is a great time for any predator to hunt. The light is faded, and I'm sure you know that when you are driving, this is the worst time of the day to be driving a vehicle. Somehow it's easier when it's completely dark. So, Christopher, I hope that answers your question. Please excuse my rather, strange sense of humour. You don't, in fact, have to hold up a number in those bubbles of green and purple to test whether an animal is colorblind or not. Hello everybody from the schools. It's wonderful to have you with us. I've now completely forgotten what schools you come from. It's wonderful to have you with us. My name is James Henry. David is on camera. That's his thumb. And you can see a beautiful, beautiful horizon there. And what we've got there is a gorgeous horizon of the sun that has just set on Africa. Now it's Colwood and Pelham schools, I think, is what we've got here, and it's great to have you with us for the next 45 minutes. Please talk to us. Ask your teacher anything you want. Now I'm going to tell you that it's going to get dark quite quickly, and that's okay. It's quite exciting to be out here in the darkness, but sometimes it can be difficult to see things. So we must ask us questions. Let's have a nice conversation. Also out on drive, we've got Tristan, and Tristan is looking for a leopard. Now I believe you did see the cheetah that went walking off. Oh, we can still see them. There they are. Now unfortunately we can't get any closer to those cheetah. To the left, Dave. Right, sorry. Yes, right again. And there. There we go. Wow! That's lucky. There we have them heading off to hunt. Very, very lucky to see them at all, and I'm glad that you've been watching them. That's fantastic stuff. So I hope you're having a good day at school, and I hope that you will enjoy a fun little safari with us. We're going to watch those cheetah until they disappear. And as they disappear, you know I have the best possible news for you. My friend Tristan, who is very good in the bush, he's just found a leopard.
Good evening and welcome to Pelham and Torwood. It's lovely to have you kids, and I hope you are enjoying this. As you can see, we've gone from one spotted cat to another. Now, my name is Tristan, as James mentioned, and on camera today I've got Wiem the wildebeest, and we have been fortunate enough to come down the road and find this beautiful leopard sitting in the middle of it and just taking it nice and easy. So if you've got any questions about the leopard, feel free to ask. You can ask your teachers to send through any questions that you might have. We'd love to hear from you guys and hear all the questions that you have on any of the African animals out here, and we'll try our best to answer as many as possible. But enough of me. Let's have a look at this beautiful male that is sitting ever so nicely in the road. Mrs. Henderson, good evening to you, ma'am. I feel like I have to say ma'am because when I was at school we had to call our teachers ma'am, and it's only polite. You want to know what time it is? Mrs. Henderson, it is 6:20 in the evening. It's just, the sun has just set about 5 minutes ago, and this male leopard, we were looking for him all afternoon, and he was hiding from us and taking it nice and easy in the shade. But now as it gets a little bit cooler, so he's going to start waking up and begin his territorial patrol as he moves around, and also he's going to be looking for food. Now we did see him this morning and he was quite hungry, so I think he's definitely going to be looking for any signs of prey items that may be around. Oh, you can see he's got a big itch there on his chin. So he's giving himself a good scratch. Isn't he beautiful? Look at that. Look at those eyes. Absolutely magnificent. Now, a leopard is my favorite animal. They are just the masters of disguise. Earlier when we were here, he was right near us and we just couldn't see him for the life of us, and only now that he's come right out into the open are we managing to get a good view. So their solitary lifestyle and the way that they can just blend into their environment really makes them appeal to me and makes them one of my favorites. Also, a male leopard has got to be one of the most powerful animals out here in terms of weight to weight ratio. They are very, very strong, and look, he's going to stand up. Now I'm going to just reverse with him so that we can keep him in front and we can see his beautiful face. Now I don't want him to get too close because otherwise I'm going to maybe push him off the road, and I would rather he stayed on the road. So we're just going to slowly back up as he walks. But isn't that magnificent? Look at that. And you can, his face is a little bit dirty. He's been rolling around in the sand. So all that is sand on his face. Tingana, what have you been doing? So he's obviously had his head somewhere. Now, I wonder actually if he hasn't been trying to hunt warthogs. So warthogs like to spend their time in burrows in termite mounds or in holes in the ground, and male leopards love warthogs. And so he maybe has stuck his head inside a termite mound, and that's why we're seeing this dirt all over his forehead. It's very seldom that you'll actually see a dirty leopard. Leopards are very good at grooming themselves, but Mr. Tingana, you are looking very dirty today, my boy. You need to groom that face out a little bit. Naomi and Imani, you wondering what is a leopard's favorite food and what is he looking for? Well, he's looking for at the moment any small to medium-sized antelope. So his favorite antelope will probably be something like an impala. Now, an impala for us is like a white-tailed deer that you have in the United States. That's about the same size. Oh, he's doing a bit of scent marking. Maybe he's going to vocalize for us. I hope he does, because he makes this amazing sound. But he'll go after medium-sized antelope. Then, like I said, like warthogs, which is like a wild boar or a pig, an African wild pig. And then he will also go after varying other prey items. Because he's quite a large male, I've seen this particular male take baby giraffe, and I've also seen him hunt baby elephants, not to any success, but I have seen him bring down a baby giraffe and also young wildebeest. In fact, one of the sightings I had of him, he managed to kill 2 young wildebeest that were about a year old, which is a very, very, very big animal for a leopard to bring down. So it's amazing the amount of he had to be able to bring that down, and to kill 2 of them was incredible. And what he did was he put these 2 wildebeest into a tree on either side of the road. So if you parked on the road, all you saw was a wildebeest and then another wildebeest on the other side and this big male leopard. Look how he's smelling the air now as well. So he's sniffing. Now, while he is scent marking and patrolling like this, he is also going to be looking out for food. Most of the time it's going to be in a territorial patrol, but as he patrols, he will look for food as well. And if there is any sign of those antelope, you'll see he'll stop and try and get into the bush, and he's going to go.
Hello, sorry about that, kids. Tristan's just obviously going through a little bit of a difficult area. He's still with the leopard, and hopefully he'll be back with him very soon. We are driving now with a spotlight, that's what this is. And let me just tell you that while we're driving along, if we see animals that are active in the day, that's called diurnal. I'm not sure if you know that word, diurnal. It means that we won't view them. So what light, big bright light like this, just hurts an animal's eyes. And it's, you know, if I shine it in my own eyes, I can't see anything for a long time. Don't worry, I closed my eyes there. And it's the same for the animals out here. And so we only shine the spotlight on animals that we see in the night. Now, you Tallwood School, you're wondering how much bigger that leopard is than the cheetah. Tallwood, it's not actually that much bigger. He's shorter. Tingana is shorter than those leopards, at least than those cheetah. Those cheetah were probably standing at about 3'5" or so off the ground, and the leopard probably about 3'2", so just a bit shorter. But the leopard, you can see, is much stockier. He's much bigger built, and so he probably weighs in the region of 80 kilograms, 80 to 85 kilograms, and that in pounds is around about 180 pounds. And what you'll find is that those cheetah are probably sitting at around 60 kilograms or so, which is about 140 pounds. So there is a big difference in weight and in the way they're built. But the cheetah is like a tall, skinny person, and the leopard is like a short, squat, stocky person. And I'm sure if you look around you in your classrooms, you'll be able to see both of those kinds of people. And interestingly, you know, human beings, we get tall and thin, we get short and stocky, we get round people, we get, well, some pretty not round people. And in animals, what you find is with animals like cheetah, well, they're all pretty much the same size. Same with leopards. Yes, there's a slight change, but it's not like us, where you get short and tall and fat and thin and muscly and no muscles. Same with all the antelope that we get out here, and of course all the deer that you get where you are. And indeed all of the rest of the wildlife that you get there. Right, Tristan has managed to find himself some signal, so you can go back to the leopard with him. No, we've lost signal again. You're going to stay with me. All right, we're going to try. I'm just going to continue telling you. So we're not going to look at the diurnal animals, but some of the nocturnal animals, which we might be lucky enough to see, would include something like a genet. Now, a genet is like a mongoose. I don't know if you know what a mongoose is, a small carnivore. A civet, which is also a small carnivore. We might see our very smallest primate, and that's something called a bush baby. It looks like a little koala bear, although it's not a bear at all, or a koala. Then we might see chameleons. I'm going to try very hard to find you a chameleon, because chameleons are great fun. Now, Ashley, you say, are cheetahs born with all their spots? Yes, they are, Ashley. They're born with all their spots. But the difference is, when they're born, they've got what we call a mantle. And that it's a sort of like a mat of white hair that sits on the back of them and goes all the way down the back. And it just helps them to stay camouflaged and hidden in the long grass when they're very little. And that mantle goes away as they get older, but all the spots are there. So they're not like hyenas, for example, which are born completely black and then they get their spots later. Leopards and cheetahs, you'll find, have got spots from birth. Now, when I say I'm looking for chameleons, what I want you to do, when you see me shining the spotlight like this from side to side, we're going to be looking in the sides of the leaves, and in the leaves we'll be hoping to find the luminous color of a chameleon at night. Ooh, there's a very special night bird. There we go. That's called a bronze-winged courser. Now, I bet you don't think there's very much similarity between a bronze-winged courser and a cheetah, but you know there is. I bet you don't know that the word to course, so you can use it as a verb. To course means to run after something. Now, a cheetah is a coursing predator. It runs after its prey. It doesn't stalk it like a leopard. And a bronze-winged courser courses after its prey as well, unlike the leopard, which Tristan is going to show you now.
Well, you can see we've managed to find him walking up the road, and you might wonder, why is this leopard and this picture all green? And that is because we are playing with infrared light. So we are trying to use a new technology so that we don't have to use proper lights to disrupt the animals. The infrared light is a much shorter wavelength, and so the animals actually can't see this infrared light, and neither could we. So if I turned off everything, in the next 10 minutes it will be so dark that I won't be able to actually see him. So this infrared light helps us to be able to see him in the dark and not to affect his eyes or affect his behavior in any way. Davian, that's a very good question. You're wondering how the leopards camouflage themselves. Well, they do it by utilizing the spots. So you saw when he was walking, he has lots of little spots that look like they're all broken up. And so when he goes into a bush and it's dappled light, so there's a bit of sun shining and there's shadow and a bit of light, then that coat really breaks up his outline, and that's how he's able to blend into his environment and really match the conditions that he's in. Now, I'm going to start the car and try go forward. We are in a bit of a bad signal area because we're in to cut out that. If I don't carry on, we're going to lose sight of him, so let's rather go up. It looks like he's territorial march that he's doing, so he's been able to go along and he's scent marking as he goes. Now we're going to go across to James while I just get through this ditch so that I don't lose signal and we don't crash away. So enjoy what James has to offer.
Yeah, we've got something quite special. Ooh, it's a moth. Or is it? Is it a butterfly or is it a moth? How can you tell the difference? Well, I can tell you that this is a butterfly, it's not a moth. And I know that because it's resting with its wings folded up. And it also has got clubbed antennae, except, you know what? I'm talking rubbish. This is a moth called a skipper. And a skipper is somewhere in between. So normally you'll find a butterfly with its wings folded up, and a moth will rest with its wings folded down, but this one is folded sort of halfway, and I think it's a skipper moth. And he's just waiting very patiently there on a tree and hoping that something like a bat won't come past and eat him. Now what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to just turn the light off, and we're going to look at the horizon, and we're going to have a listen to the night sounds of Africa. Just for 10 seconds. And I think what you can notice there is that there's not very much sound at all. Now that's because we're in what I like to call the changing of the guard. It's that time of the day between when the daytime animals go to sleep and the nighttime animals wake up and start calling. Now if you were to come through here in an hour's time, you'd hear frogs, you'd hear nocturnal birds, you might hear a leopard going, you might hear a lion roaring as well. And maybe Tingana will make a lovely sound now. We're going to head straight across to Tingana again, and let's hope that he makes that sawing call.
I hope so too, James. I'm really hoping that he is going to make his rasping, vocalizing call, because it is absolutely amazing. It's this deep sawing sound, and it really is quite something to hear. It's one of my favorite sounds out here in the African bush, so I do hope that he does make that sound. Now you can see he is just strolling down the road like he does not care, and that is because he is the territorial male in this area. Anthony, you're asking if leopards lay eggs. Well, no, Anthony, a leopard is a mammal, and what classifies a mammal is something that gives birth to live young and then suckles it by using milk. Whereas things like birds will lay an egg and then they do not provide any milk for their young. So that is the difference between mammals and birds and reptiles. Reptiles will also lay eggs, some of them do give birth to live young as well, but they do not provide milk for their young. So a mammal, like a leopard, gives birth to an animal that is alive already, and then it suckles from its mom and gets milk from its mom, and that is how it survives and grows up to be a big adult, like this male that we see here. Just look how he's just moving down the road. Like I say, this is a territorial male who's just doing a patrol and is just not a care in the world because he is the dominant male. There's no male that should be in this area, so he knows that he's the biggest of the biggest out in this section, and that's why he can walk around like this. Now, Madison, you're wondering if leopards occur in packs or in groups together. Well, no, they don't. So a leopard is the only true solitary cat of the African plains. So earlier you saw the two cheetah brothers together, so they form coalitions, the two males, and you'll find lions form prides, but the leopards are solitary. So if it's a male leopard, you'll find he's on his own throughout his life. Well, I suppose the first little bit when he's a cub, he might have a sibling, but once he is been kicked out by his mom or the territorial male, he becomes a loner and he's on his own all his life. The females is a little bit different. They are on their own except when they have cubs. So when they have their cubs, then they will have other leopards with them, but it's not essentially a pack or a pride together. It's called a leap of leopards, but it is essentially just a mom and her little cubs, and she looks after them until they're strong enough to go off on their own. And that's normally about a year and a half to 2 years that the little cubs stay with their mom, and then once they reach that age, they're able to hunt for themselves, and they can then find their own food, and she then lets them go and start mating to produce the next litter of cubs that she's going to have. But isn't this incredible? Isn't it amazing to be following a male leopard in the dark? It's really quite something. Jessica, this is an interesting question. You're wondering what color a leopard's eyes are. Well, it depends on the leopard, Jessica. You can see how well they camouflage. So that goes back to our question earlier of how do they camouflage. See how the spots break him up and he can't see him where he's in the bush, and then when he comes out again we can see him. So those spots work really well to hide him. But the eye color is very, very, very different depending on the leopard. So like us as people, we have different eye colors, so do the leopards. So some leopards will have green, some leopards will have blue, some leopards will have yellow, some will have even an amber color eyes. And generally as they get older, their eye color becomes more and more dull and is not as bright as it is when they're a cub. When they're cubs, they're normally born with either bright blue eyes or very, very deep brown, amber colored eyes, and sometimes even bright green eyes. But as they get older, it fades a little bit and it becomes a bit more muted, the color, and so it's not as noticeable. But yes, they have different color eyes, just like us as people. But isn't this amazing? Tall wood. You're all wondering whether the leopards are relaxed with us or would they attack us. Well, in the vehicles, they're actually very relaxed. You can see this male. I'm slowly driving behind him, and he has got not a care in the world. He hasn't looked at us once while we've been driving behind him, so he's very, very used to the cars. He knows that the cars are part of his environment, but we're not a threat, so we don't eat him, we don't take food from him, we don't chase him, we don't try hurt him. So he's worked out that it's okay for us to be around and not something that he has to be concerned about. But on foot is a little bit different. So when we are doing bushwalks or we're trying to track these animals, because sometimes what we'll do is when we try and find a leopard is we'll go off on foot and follow his footprints and try and see where they go. And when we do that, then they can potentially attack us because they are wild animals, and if they feel like they have been cornered or they are threatened or if they've got something that they need to defend, like a food item, then they can be very aggressive and they can be very, very, very dangerous. A leopard is a really big cat and very, very powerful. So for us, it's something that we need to be very, very careful of. There's been a number of people that unfortunately have been attacked by leopards, but where we are in the vehicles, like what we're doing now, is perfectly safe because this leopard knows that we are not a danger to it at all. Now you see how he's rubbing his face and then he lifts his tail and he sprays his urine all over. So he's trying to mark his territory. It's quite incredible how much urine he does. Ariana, you're wondering what sound a leopard makes, so we were talking about it just now. So there you go, Ariana. I think Tingana heard you and he made the sound for you. Isn't that amazing? So that is the sound that a leopard makes. It is a rasping, roaring call, and it sounds like somebody sawing wood, and that's going out, and he calls into the ground, and that spreads all over this area, and it tells all the other male leopards that I am here, this is my territory, don't bother coming here because I'm a strong, healthy male. And it also tells females that might want to mate with him that he is around, and the females can then find him. But isn't that amazing? Ariana, I think you've got the most luck in the world because often leopards don't call for long periods of time, and for you to ask that question and then him to call at the same time is absolutely unbelievable. So you are very, very lucky, Ariana. I'm very happy that he did call. It was perfect timing. And I'm so glad that he stayed on this road because we are actually on the boundary of our area. So if he goes north, we can't follow him. So we're very, very fortunate that he's stayed on this road and has walked so far down the road that we can just follow him so gently as he goes. Ashley, you're wondering how many pounds a leopard is and how much he weighs? Well, a male leopard of this size, because we have some of the biggest leopards in the world, he probably weighs about anywhere between 160 and 200 pounds. So he's a very, very heavy cat. He's not quite as heavy as the lions. The lions can weigh up to about 500 pounds, but he is still a very, very big male. And like I was saying, here in the Sabi Sands, in the northeastern part of South Africa, the leopards are some of the biggest in the world, and that's because of the amount of food that we have here. We have a lot of medium-sized antelope and a lot of these warthogs that I was telling you about earlier, so they get a lot of protein in their diet, which allows them to really grow very big and strong. But look at his camouflage. Look at how when he goes in the grass, he disappears. If he dropped his tail and sat very still, you can see how difficult it would be to be able to see him in that grass. Isn't that amazing? So you can see how well camouflaged they are. Now we're going to carry on following him and see where he goes and if he carries on his territorial patrol. And while we do that, let's go across to James, who I believe has got something much smaller that leopards often like to eat.
This is very special, everybody. We've got what we call a slender mongoose, and we don't ever see them like this. You know, they normally run away, they disappear, and this chap's out hunting. And what's very interesting is that they normally hunt during the day. So I don't know why he's hunting at night, but obviously he feels quite safe at night because he's running along the road, a little bit like Tingana. I'm not sure we're going to see him for very long. Let's just watch him there. I'm going to take, as soon as he looks towards us, I'm going to just take the light off him slightly so that we don't hurt his eyes. That's very, very special. Let's go around the corner. Ooh, Madison, you say what other animals are active at night? Madison, well, like I said, the genets and civets, which are quite similar to that mongoose, which has now disappeared. He's in here. Then we get lions and leopards and hyenas are often active in the night time. No, he's gone away, I'm afraid. So lions and leopards and hyenas are active at night. What else would be active at night? Sometimes a white-tailed mongoose. The civets and genets, like I said, the bush babies, the African wild cat, which is looks just like a domestic cat, really. It's just got nice red legs and it's a bit taller. And those are the main animals that are active in the night time. The rest tend to be active mainly during the day, because you've got to be really specially adapted to move around at night, and that's because you need to have great eyes to be able to see in the night time. We're just going to drive very slowly along here. I'm still hoping to find you a chameleon, which would be very special. But I don't know if we're going to manage at this stage. We're still going to try. We've got quite a lot of time left. Maybe we'll be lucky. Now remember, you can ask as many questions as you like. Let's head straight back to the leopard now, and I'll try and find you a chameleon.
Well, James, I wish you good luck on your chameleon. I think you need to get hold of Taylor, because Taylor was the chameleon queen last night. She was spotting them all over the place. I think she had 3 last night, so maybe she can help you with where she had them. But you can see he's still scent marking. Did you see how he jumped up and rubbed his face on the plant there? That is typical of a leopard. They do it very, very often. They always put their head up, and then they've got this little gland in their cheek that they're able to scent mark and leave their telltale sign. So any other leopard that walks past here knows that this is this male, and one that they need to be aware of. And they have a little organ in the roof of their mouth called the organ of Jacobson that they're able to analyze that scent. Kayla, you're wondering where the leopards go to sleep. Well, the leopard generally will try and find a quite thick bush area to sleep. So it will go in under some trees, in some long grass, and they'll try to sleep there. Isn't that amazing? As he's going off into the darkness, it's incredible. We're at that low level with him now, and it's just black behind him. It's really quite special. But they go under the trees and into the grass, and that's where they sleep. And sometimes, if it's a very hot day and there's lots of insects that are bugging him, you can see the insects flying around in the lights. They go towards the leopard, and they irritate the leopard, and you'll find that he'll then go up into a tree and he'll sleep in the tree itself. So you sometimes find them in these big trees, and they're lying on these branches, and it is the most beautiful scene you can imagine. It really is quite something to see a big cat draped over the branches. It is very, very special. So that's where they go to sleep. But now is not time for sleep. Now is time for action in a leopard's world. It's now the time when they move around the most. Chris, this is a good question. You want to know whether a cheetah or a leopard is faster. Well, the leopard, Chris, is the cheetah is the fastest animal on land. It runs at about 120 kilometers an hour. Now in miles, that is about 80 miles an hour, whereas a leopard will only do about 70 kilometers an hour. So that is only, about 40 miles, Liam? Somewhere around there. So it's a very big difference, 30 miles an hour difference between the two of them. So the leopard is more a stocky, well-built animal that is designed for power. It's trying to bring down big animals, and then it's got to take them up into the tree. So it's a much bigger, stockier animal, whereas a cheetah is built for speed, so it's a lot more slender. They don't have the same power. Unfortunately, with the leopard, because it's so stocky and well built, it's very difficult for it to run very fast. Now he seems to have gone off the road here and turned down this road, which is great because I think he's going to go and have a drink of water. There is a little bit of water not too far from here, and I think that's where he's going to go and have a little drink. So I don't want to scare him. I'm just trying to see where he's gone off the road here. Now there he is going down the road. Now you may have seen some lights in the distance, and that's some game drive vehicles that have some guests that have come from all over the world to come and see our animals, and so they're going to join them. So I'm just going to tell them where we've gone and let them know that we're coming down this road. Mike, we've just turned south now, so you just follow my lights, you'll be able to find us. And it's perfect because he's turned the perfect direction. I was very worried that he was going to go the opposite way, which, like I was saying earlier, is out of our area, but actually he's come back into our area and back into the place that we traverse, and so we're able to see them, which is great for a little bit longer. Well, Lily, you're wondering about how many cubs a leopard can have. Now, leopard can have quite a few cubs. The most she can have is 4 at once. So you'll find that generally, though, in this area we see the average is 2. So the female leopard that we see the most here, her name is Karula. She has 2 cubs at the moment. 2 quite big cubs now. They're about a year old. So she's a little bit older. But they can have up to 4. It's very, very uncommon for 4. The most I've ever seen a female have is 3. But look at him. Isn't that amazing? Connor, you're wondering if leopards are endangered or they are in danger of becoming endangered. Well, Connor, unfortunately the reality is that all big cats at the moment are at risk of becoming endangered, and there is a lot of pressure because of the population of people that we have in the world today. There is so many people that they are unfortunately under very big pressure. They're losing habitat, which means that they are becoming rarer and rarer and rarer, which is not ideal. So their numbers are declining, but at this stage here in South Africa, the leopard is still absolutely fine. It is a healthy population in this reserve, so they're not endangered here, but they will become endangered if the pressure on them still keeps going. So in certain parts of the world they have become endangered, but here in South Africa not as yet. Now when we have multiple vehicles, and like I was saying to you, when we have guests that join us, then we do what's a little leapfrogging exercise. So we each allow each other some time in front to be able to view this animal. So Mike, who has just joined us now, is going to go in front and he's going to get a good view of them, and we're going to follow behind him for a little bit, and then we'll just leapfrog each other so that we can all get a good chance to see this beautiful male leopard. And while we do that, and while Mike goes ahead of us, let's go across to James and see if he's had any luck with his chameleon search.
I have had no luck with the chameleon search, everybody. I have been hit in the face by many beetles, but that's okay. This is a good place for chameleons, I think. And as David was telling me, he said there are some huge termite mounds along here, which is a very good point. So we'll show you some of those. Hopefully we'll find you a chameleon. Hello, Andrew. You say, how do you find a chameleon? Well, a chameleon, you see, is very difficult to find in the daytime, but at night time, when they go to sleep, they start to get very shiny. You know, like a reflector board or like a reflective piece of clothing, like a very bright yellow piece of clothing? Well, that's what they look like when you shine a light on them at night. And so they're actually not hard to see if you know what you're looking for. I'm not having much luck today, but what I can show you is this huge castle of clay. Look at that. That's where the termites live. Now, I know that in the United States you have enormous trouble with termites in your homes because a lot of people still build with wood. But out here, we don't worry too much about it. We use bricks to build. But these things do eat our door frames, and they eat our furniture and all that sort of thing. And there are millions and millions and millions of termites in this mound. And you know what? You actually can't see how big it is. So let me just quickly, very quickly jump out the car. Now I'm going to be very careful because at night time there could be anything around. So you've got to be careful. Only walk in the light. But look how huge this termite mound is. See? Now, I'm not a very big fellow. I'm about 5 feet and 8 inches tall. But this termite mound is massive. And it's probably extends almost half a football field on either side of the huge mound, which I think is amazing. Right, let's keep up with our chameleon search. It's very bright in my eyes. Plug myself in so I can hear your questions, which have been very good so far. If I can get it into the right hole, there we go. Hello, Mrs. Marciello's class. Mrs. Marciello's class, you want to know where all the elephants are? Well, actually, we've just seen some, but elephants are a little bit like the diurnal animals. They don't like the light. They get very cross if you shine a light on them, and so we turn the lights off when we're near them. We let them disappear into the bush, and then we carry on going. So we don't look at elephants at night, I'm afraid. But there are lots of them around. And Kayla, you want to know what my favorite animals are. Well, remember that animals, the word animal includes things other than just mammals. So my favorite mammal is a wild dog, which is like an African wolf. They're very beautiful, about the size of an Alsatian, and they're brown and black and white, and they look very lovely. They've got huge round ears that look like little satellite dishes on the front of their faces. They're my favorite, and I like them because they're kind to each other. And of course, when as human beings, we like things that are kind because we like things that are kind to us. So that's my favorite mammal. Then my favorite bird is something called a white-browed scrub robin. Now, the white-browed scrub robin doesn't look very impressive, but it's got the best voice out here. It sings beautifully, so I like that one. My favorite reptile is something called a leopard tortoise. Which I think you might call a turtle over there, but it's a reptile this big with a nice shell on it, and they always remind me of being on holiday, so that's why I like a leopard tortoise. And then we do get fishes and that sort of thing, but I don't really have a favorite fish out here. And we get lots of insects, and the insect that I like the best is something called a cicada. And many of you will know what a cicada is, except I bet you don't say it like that. You probably say cicada. And I like cicadas because they make a beautiful sound that reminds me of the summertime. They make a loud... Oh, I found one! Look at that! Look at that, David. Can you see it there? There.
Over there.
In the middle of the light. There's a chameleon. A flap-necked chameleon. I told you they were around. Isn't that nice? Hooray! And he's now, can you see he's going darker? You can see that he's not the same colour he was when we saw him, and he's got a mosquito biting him. Look at that. Just behind his eye, there's a nasty mosquito sucking his blood. Can you believe it? Even the chameleons are not excused from the attacks of the mosquitoes. Isn't that amazing? Now, we're looking at this animal. You've seen a cheetah. You've seen a leopard. We've talked about lions. We've talked about elephants. Do you know what the most dangerous animal in Africa is? Not the chameleon, but that mosquito. Not that particular mosquito. That's a house mosquito. They're not very harmful. They don't carry disease. But something called a Anopheles mosquito is the most dangerous because they carry disease called malaria. And Ariana, you're wondering what the chameleon eats. Well, I've got to tell you, if that chameleon, you can see it looking at the mosquito, if that chameleon could bend its tongue backwards, it would definitely eat that mosquito. They eat largely grasshoppers and flies and other small insects and things like that. And they do that by shooting their tongues out. They grab them, normally during the day, and they'll climb off the trees in the day, and they'll walk along the ground and try and catch themselves some insects that will land, well, they can stay in the trees, on the ground or in the trees. And they move very, very slowly. They're very patient. They sneak up on the animals that they're trying to eat. Isn't that cool? Now, we only get one kind of chameleon here, and that's called a flap-necked chameleon. Now, J. Leandre, that's an interesting name. You say, how many colors can a chameleon turn into? You know, there are a lot of stories about chameleons changing colors. Most of them are not true. They can change into different colors of green. You can see this one's changed color already. He's changed to the same color as the leaves around him. He was almost white when I spotted him. That's how I spotted him. Now I wouldn't be able to see him. So if I took the lights off him now, you can see it's exactly the same color as the leaves around him. I wouldn't be able to see him. I've seen them also brown, so you see those little bits of brown on him? I've seen them that color before, but those somewhere between that green and that brown that I saw, that's basically the colors that they can become. So if you put him on a piece of red paper, he can't go red, I'm afraid. I always used to think that a chameleon could go any color that you put him on. So if you put him on some red or some bright yellow, then he'd become red or bright yellow or blue, but that's not the case. He's very special. And Tyann, you're obviously a very clever person, because yes, you're correct that we think they do change color because of for camouflage, but also, exactly as you have said, because of the mood that they're in. And there are a number of animals out here that change color because of the mood that they're in. And when a chameleon is stressed, we think that it goes a little bit lighter. But you know, if you look at that chameleon, you can see that it was much brighter when we put the light on it. Now it's gone dark. So it tells me that although maybe its color does change with mood, it's definitely trying to stay camouflaged and hidden away from the other animals. Bless you, David. Right, so I think we should move slowly along. We've had a wonderful chameleon sighting. Now I want you to try and help me see if we can't spot another one. Let's see, we've got 5 minutes left. See if we can't find another chameleon. Cody, you ask a good question. You say, is there a way to tell a chameleon's age? Cody, only if you've known it from the time it hatched from its little egg. Otherwise, no. I think it's very difficult. They can get very big, but you see their size rather depends on how much they eat, not really on their age. So while you will get bigger, because as you get older, that's what humans do, you're 18, the chameleons will probably keep growing until the day they die, but it really does depend on how much they eat. I can't see any more chameleons here, but maybe we'll find a mongoose, something like that. Let's head across to Tristan. I'm not sure if he's still with the leopard, but hopefully he is.
Unfortunately not, James. Our leopard went into a very, very thick area and it was impossible to follow him any further. He went into this very, very, very deep drainage of lots of trees, and I just couldn't get the car anywhere near where he was, so we unfortunately lost him. So now we are just slowly trying to go back towards home, because it's almost time for home, and we're going to try and see if we can find any signs of bush babies. That's what we're looking for, is a little bush baby or something of that description. Now, if you're not sure what a bush baby is, it's a little nocturnal primate. So it's like a little monkey that's out at night, and they come around and they jump from tree to tree looking for food. So we're looking for them. Now, I think James is actually up in front here, so I'm just going to bypass him. But I'm going to stop here shortly because there is an absolute racket going on, and it is an amazing sound. So, and because this week we also did have a day in celebration of these little creatures, I'm going to stop and so we can listen to them. Just hold on 2 seconds. Alright, so if you listen very, very carefully, you're going to hear lots of squeaking and high-pitched calls. Well, Pelham Elementary, you wonder how far do we live away from this area? Well, we live inside the reserve, and we live right here, in fact very close to this dam that we're listening to all these sounds at, and so not very far at all. But the nearest community of people or town should we call it, is probably from here about, I would say, 3 kilometers. That's about how far it is, and that's the nearest village on the outskirts of the game reserve, so not too far away at all. But the nearest proper town or big town is about an hour and a half's drive away, so it's quite a long way, and that's the nearest shops and places for us to be able to get supplies. Now, you might be wondering what all these little noises are, and they are frogs. So on Monday, it was International Frog Day, and so all these little calls that you're hearing behind me are all different types of frogs. You can hear there's one that sounds like a drop of water that is dropping on the surface of the dam, and that one is called a bubbling casina, and that's that one that you can hear plop. And then there's one that sounds like a ticking sound, or metal being hit together. That's called a painted reed frog. And then there is also a water lily frog calling. So absolutely amazing. Right, unfortunately that's all we've got time for, so with the schools it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us. Pelham and Tallwood Elementaries, we've really enjoyed having you. I hope you enjoyed the cheetah and the leopard. It was really a wonderful evening spent with them, so I hope you guys loved it, and I hope we had to answer as many questions as possible, and that you enjoyed all the questions that you gave us and that we answered for you. And like I say, it's been an absolutely wonderful evening having that leopard moving around and having the cheetah, and I know Taylor had a great bushwalk where she followed some of the tracks for Tingana and eventually found Tingana as well. So it's been a great afternoon, and from myself and VM, we would just like to say thank you very much, and we'll see you all on the Sunrise Drive tomorrow morning.